Have you ever been driving around Lee Summit and wondered what's that going to be? What's being built there? Wow, that went up fast. The Development Minute is here to help, highlighting some of the newest projects in Lee Summit, Missouri. More single-family homes are coming to Lee Summit. Orchard Woods, located in North Lee Summit off of Northeast Lakewood Way, will have 34 lots. Woodland Oaks next to Legacy Park on the corner of Colburn and Blackwell will have 42 lots. And Bailey Farms in South Lee Summit off of Ranson Road will have 3 phases with over 200 lots. Construction of new homes is set to begin in 2024. Luxury living and modern housing just north of downtown Lee Summit is coming. Trilogy Apartments on the corner of Northwest Ward Road and Donovan Road will have 323 units, a clubhouse with a deluxe coffee bar, a large fitness studio with a rock climbing wall, and an outdoor terrace with a heated saltwater pool and pickleball court. Whataburger is expanding to South Lee Summit off of Missouri 150 Highway and 291. The orange and white circa 1950s burger chain offers breakfast, lunch, and dinner, from burgers and chicken sandwiches to biscuits and pancakes. It is slated to open in 2024. The 3.9 million square foot mixed-use project Discovery Park has begun. The 270-acre site near I-470 off of Northwest Colburn Road and Northeast Douglas Street will consist of retail, restaurants, office spaces, entertainment, and luxury multifamily housing. It will also offer a one-of-a-kind Riverwalk district, more than 5 miles of nature trails, and a 4-acre recreational lake to kayak and paddleboard. The first phase of the project, The Village, is set to begin construction in 2024. Thanks for checking out this episode of the Development Minute. If you found this video informative, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel to stay up to date on upcoming developments, events, and city services.
I'm Assistant Chief Jim Eden.
And I'm Battalion Chief Ben Hicks.
And today we're at Lee Summit Fire Station 3. Fire Station 3 was part of the 2016 no tax increase general obligation bond for public safety initiatives. The station was built and occupied in August of 2020. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we've not been able to give tours or have an actual ribbon cutting. So we want to invite you in today to give you the opportunity to see what goes on within a Lee Summit Fire Department station.
Let's go take a tour. This is our admin side of the facility. We use this side mainly for offices. We have a lot of work during the day, whether it's training or doing reports or just generally taking care of the shift that we need to do. At this particular station, Station 3, we do have an assistant chief that works out of here. That person has their own office where they need to manage what's going on throughout the day with the shift and staffing, and as well as running calls out of here. The captain has their own office as well. What the captain does is at this specific station is in charge of both the fire truck that's here as well as the ambulance. And so with all those personnel responsibilities as well as running calls and reports, that's where they work out of. And generally for the rest of the crew, which is somewhere around 5 to 6 individuals, we have rooms to write reports, and we have additional training rooms and other rooms where people can work. Walking into our living area, I think it's important to recognize that we work 48-hour shifts. So in the evenings, after 5 o'clock, after work is done, we may have the opportunity to catch a game or something else as long as we're not running calls. And this gives us the opportunity to do that. When we go into our kitchen, I think this gives you a great reason to know why we go to the grocery store. When you see fire trucks at the grocery store, what we're doing. Well, so for 2 days working for 48 hours, we buy all our meals at the grocery store, and then we come in here and cook. Just like you guys do at home. So everybody has their own fridge on each shift as well as their own pantry, and then we cook those meals here. Going into the sleeping side of things, we've got a couple different things that are significant. We have our own laundry room, which again is important when we're here for 48 hours. The opportunity to wash and clean our clothes and bedding is very important for hygiene. And walking into where our beds are, we keep the kind of sleeping quarters over on one side of the building. It gives us both easy access out to where our fire apparatus are, as well as kind of keeping it a little bit quieter for those people that have been up all night running calls. We have 11 bedrooms here at this station, and the reason we built it with so many bedrooms is we want to give ourselves as a city the opportunity to expand. So if we need to put another apparatus here or numerous other people working at this station, that's already in place as far as infrastructure goes, and we don't need to go back and try to make it bigger or better, and that's really important for us, especially because the old station was so small. Back out on the apparatus floor, we had doors facilitated as many places as possible, so that way when we're sleeping at night and a call comes out, we can make our way out fairly quickly to get out onto the truck if we need to and run a call. On the other side of the station, we kind of have other stuff that we may want to keep separated if we want to. Physical fitness is very important to us as firefighters. So in order to better ourselves and make sure we're as healthy as we can to do this job, we have our own gym facility here that we kind of go throughout the day when we can and get an opportunity to come in and work out. Our goal when we run calls, when we get back to the station after calls, our goal is to get ready to go back as soon as we can to run another call. So we have the opportunity or capability here to fill up our air tanks. So you see firefighters wear the big air tanks on their backs and they use those in a fire. We can come back and fill those up and make sure that we're ready to go again when we're wanting to go run another call. We have our own workshop here. We work on a lot of our tools and making sure that everything's clean and operational, and this gives us the capability to do that, again, to make sure that we have everything we need and we're as capable as we can be running calls throughout the city. Cancer prevention is very important in the fire service right now. Because of that, we have an extractor machine, and what this does is gives us the capability when we come back from a fire, we can put our bunker gear into this machine and get all that really nasty crud off of our gear. Again, kind of getting back to that cancer prevention mode, allowing us to be as clean as we possibly can for the next call. And finally is our bunker gear room. We each have our own individual locker. This gives us the opportunity to store our gear when we're not here working in between shifts, as well as keep a clean extra set on here in case we do run a fire and we need to clean our current gear. Typically, this is where your day starts off at the fire station. You come in and get your gear and put it on wherever you're working that day, and then you end the same way, bring your stuff back to your locker to go home after working. This is Med 3. This ambulance just currently moved into the station from Station 7. Station 3, since we've had it built, has turned into one of our busiest stations in the city. Therefore, we wanted to provide the best care and the closest unit as we could. So we moved one of our ambulances up, and this became Med 3 for this particular instance. Out of this station, we also have Pumper 3. And that's a fire apparatus that they utilize to run the calls on this west end of the city. The last vehicle that you see is the chief's vehicle. We have 2 shift chiefs on shift every day, and they split the city. And this chief running out of this station typically covers the west and south area of the city, while our chief of Station 2 covers kind of that northeast section of our city, and they divide it up evenly.
Thank you for going on a tour with us today. If you have any other questions about the Lee Summit Fire Department, please go to our webpage at lsfire.net or follow us on Facebook at Lee Summit Fire Department.
Thanks for joining us on the tour.
Good questions. Yes, Councilmember Edson.
Since this is a cooperative agreement, is this similar to like when we buy things through the market?
It'd be similar. We don't buy through them.
We moved to Lee Summit right before we had our 3rd child, and we ended up raising all 4 of our children here. And it's been just such a great place to raise kids. Well, I'd been involved in government and politics for a long time, different aspects of it. And then when I was raising my kids, I was very involved in different community organizations and involved with the schools. And as my kids got older and I saw them and their friends starting to leave the community, I realized that there were some things that needed to be done in order to attract younger people back to Lee Summit, and I wanted to be part of that conversation. We need to work on economic development and keep trying to get more jobs here that pay well so that they will attract our kids. We have this great school system that we're all paying for, and yet our kids graduate and leave. We need to work with the school districts and with the businesses to create an environment that keeps our kids here. We have a great community with great housing, but we also don't have enough housing that is attainable for middle class. People who are just starting in the workforce can't afford to buy a house here at this point in time. If you take your average firefighter and your teacher and they're married, it's very hard for them to buy a house in Lee Summit. So some of my priorities when I ran were economic development, attainable housing, and public safety. When I ran 6 years ago, our police officers and our firefighters were some of the worst paid public safety folks in the metro area. And in the past 6 years, We've done a great job of getting their pay up, getting their benefits up, and now there will be a public safety tax, which will be a game changer for Lee Summit. It will help us to attract and retain new talent for the coming years. All communities are having a hard time recruiting and retaining police and firefighters. So if we can be a place that they want to come and is desirable, it's going to be great for the well-being of our community. We need to make sure that not only are we paying people well, but that we have enough fire stations as the city grows. We need to make sure that we grow the police department. Something else I'm really proud of, the replacement of Fire Station 4 and 5. I started taking council members on tours of Fire Station number 4 to show them how badly a replacement for that station was needed. There are so many opportunities to get involved in this community, whether it's serving on a committee, whether it's participating in the Citizens Leadership Academy, which the city sponsors. It's easy to sit at home and complain and think you understand how it works, and then when you actually understand how it works, you have a better appreciation for it, and you'll want to get involved more. I just wanted to clarify that. I think Hillary did a great job. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Would you please rise for the invocation and stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Heavenly Father, we are thankful for the opportunity to serve the people of our city. Help us to act with determination, character, and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Let our discussions be well-intentioned. May our spirits be lifted because of the friendships we share. We pray for neighborhood spirit and always advocate prudently for our community. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. With liberty and
Again, welcome, everyone. I'm calling to order the City of Lee Summit regular session number 69. Could I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember DeMauro,
Here.
Councilmember Hodges, Councilmember Pryor. Here. Councilmember Felker,
Here.
Councilmember Lovell,
Here.
Councilmember Edson,
Here.
Councilmember Shields. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Here.
Mayor Baird.
Here. Before we get started, I need to do some agenda management. Usually, public comments comes right after public hearings, and I need to move those to that position, so I need to move public comments to agenda item number 5. They got moved down one on accident. Okay, I need a motion to adopt the agenda. I have one by Councilmember DeMauro and a second by Councilmember Shields. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Passes 8-0. Okay, thank you. Next is the approval of the consent agenda. I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Yes, Councilmember Felker.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you to you, Mayor, for working with us on information for the Housing Authority, and certainly to Mr. Head and your team, anyone else that you worked with to put that together for us. I know our outcome is probably not really any different than what we were looking at last week, but I do feel like it's a good thing, and I appreciate also the additional information and the references that are in the appointment packets. I think that's just good for us as council members to have, to access and understand our role in the process. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It's adopted 8-0. Thank you all. Now we have council roundtable, items of general interest, things going on in the community. Yes, Councilmember Fields.
Thank you, Mayor. I first wanted to say thank you to PAC 4195. Councilmember DeMauro and I got to go and speak with a great group of scouts last night. They had really good questions, were very engaged, and it was a whole lot of fun seeing them. And then this weekend downtown, we've got, I believe it's the first day of the farmers market. So I hope everybody goes out and supports our local farmers and makers. It's going to be a great day. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilmember Edson.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, last week we got to open fire station number 4, and I just thought it was a great event, and so many of the council members came to see it, which was great, having everybody there. And I've had so many neighbors from the district reach out who were either there, some of them who weren't even able to come, and say they were sorry they weren't able to go because they've watched it being built from the ground up. But the neighborhood is really excited about the opening of the fire station. And the crew got moved in yesterday. So, thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Yes, it was beautiful, another beautiful building and very cutting edge. Okay, any other council roundtable? Okay, then we will go to our business for the evening, public hearings. We have public hearing, so I'm going to close the regular session and open the public hearing in the matter of vacation of right-of-way, a portion of Northeast Hardage Circle right-of-way located north of Northeast Todd George Road. Gronberg is the applicant. Would all those wishing to speak to this matter please rise and be sworn in by the city clerk? Okay, before we begin, Councilmember Felker.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick note to, that I'll need to recuse myself from this public hearing by way of a conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Soto, looks like you're going to start it off.
That is correct. Good evening. Yeah. So I'd like to enter into the record Exhibit A, list of exhibits 1 through 17.
Please enter into the record 1 through 17.
So just to orient everyone a little bit to the site here, the subject right-of-way is located on the south end or south side of Prairie Lake. You can see Todd George Road. That's I guess it's its northernmost limits and then starts turning east north of Tudor Road. So the subject right-of-way is at that hard corner of Hardage and Todd George Road. As you can see, it's primarily residential in nature, and which is also reflected in our comprehensive plan. So the right-of-way itself was originally dedicated in 1943, and the side-by-side images here just are intended to depict the original configuration, which was a little bit more of a meandering path for what was then known, or to be known as Lakeshore Drive, now Hardage Circle. So as you can see on the right, the image on the right, it later took on a more linear path as opposed to more of that meandering one. So in 1962, to account for the readjusted or relocated alignment for that road, some additional right-of-way was dedicated to capture the boundaries of that road alignment. 1972, the house was built. And in the process of the applicant attempting to go through the process to replat the property, what was discovered is that what was presumed all this time to have been front yard is actually that original right-of-way. And in fact, you can see here that the house itself actually encroaches a little bit into that original right-of-way. So with this application, the area that is outlined in red, if approved, would revert back to private ownership. So the area that's long been presumed to have been front yard will become front yard. And the hatched area over here on the image on the right depicts the remaining 50 feet of right-of-way, which was conveyed back in the 60s to capture the actual road alignment. So with this vacation of right-of-way, there would still be ample 50 feet of right-of-way, which is our minimum standard for a local residential street. So one of the conditions, or as part of this vacation of right-of-way, that there will be a 10-foot utility easement that will be retained, and that's covered in the ordinance document that's before you for approval. So with that, I'll yield to any questions.
Okay. No applicant presentation at all?
No, it'll just be staff, yeah.
Very good. Any questions for staff? Okay, is there anyone here this evening that would like to speak in favor or in opposition to this application? Please come forward. Are there additional questions from council? Hearing no further testimony, I'm closing the public hearing and reopening the regular session. Is there any council discussion on this application? Seeing no further questions or comments, Councilmember DeMoro, would you please read Bill number 24-063?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to advance the second reading, Bill number 24-063, an ordinance vacating a portion of dedicated right-of-way located at the northwest corner of Northeast Hardage Circle and Northeast Todd George Road, abutting 1502 Northeast Hardage Circle, and retaining an easement over a portion of the vacated right-of-way in the city of Lee Summit, Missouri.
Thank you. I have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 24-063 by Councilmember DeMoro, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It does pass 8-0 with one recusal. Thank you, everyone. That's going to take us to, if you remember right, I moved the I moved the public comments up, so we'll start off with Mr. Huser. From the Park Board, yes.
Ready to start my time?
You can, or you can use the middle one, whatever you're most comfortable with. Yeah.
All right. Good evening, members of the council, fellow citizens, and representatives of various City of Lee Summit departments. My name is Jim Huser, and I stand before you today as the Vice President of the Lee Summit Park and Rec Board, as well as a citizen, as well as also an advocate for the enhancement and expansion of our community green spaces and recreational facilities. A proposal you all will be discussing this evening, the introduction of a park impact fee on new development, is not merely a policy change. It represents a profound commitment to the health and well-being and enrichment of our community both now and for future generations. I wholeheartedly support this initiative, and I urge each of you to do the same. First and foremost, let me acknowledge the undeniable benefit that park and recreation facilities bring to our community. They serve as the lungs of our city, providing clean air space where nature can thrive amidst urban development. They are also places where families gather, children's play, and individuals of all ages find solace and rejuvenation. Moreover, they contribute significantly to the physical and mental health of our population, offering accessible venues for exercise, relaxation, and social interactions. However, as our beloved city continues to grow, so does the strain on our existing park and recreational resources. The influx of new developments, while a sign of economic health and vibrance, demands a proportional investment into our communal spaces to maintain and indeed enhance the quality of life for all. The proposed park impact fee is a fair and equitable solution to this challenge. It ensures developers contribute to the infrastructure that supports our communities that they build in, fostering a city that values green spaces, recreational opportunities, and as much as it does residential and commercial development. Implementing this fee is an investment in sustainability and livability. It allows us to expand, improve our parks, our trails, our recreational facilities to keep pace with our growing population. It signifies a commitment to creating a balanced, healthy urban environment where leisure and nature play a critical role in our housing and our commerce. I understand the concerns that may arise with the introduction of a new fee, particularly regarding those that impact development at a minimal cost. However, the long-term benefit far outweigh these initial concerns. A city with well-funded, well-maintained, and accessible park and recreational facilities is more attractive to potential residents as well as businesses alike. It enhances property values, it attracts tourism, and it promotes a vibrant and active community. In conclusion, the proposal park impact fee is a visionary step forward for Lee Summit. It reflects our shared values of community, health, and sustainability. By supporting this initiative, we not only enrich our lives, but we also ensure that our future generations inherit a city that feels like their home, a place where the beauty and nature and joy of the community are within reach for everyone. I urge you all to support the Parks Impact Fee. Together, let's invest in our future of Lee Summit, a future where our parks and recreation facilities continue to be a source of pride, joy, and well-being for all that care to call Lee Summit home. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Gale, David Gale, would you like to come forward?
Gale, 2401 Southwest Winterview Court. Mayor Baird, council, esteemed staff. I'm here to speak on two issues. First is our Missouri native plant conundrum. Hopefully everybody is aware of Callery pear, the invasive honeysuckle, garlic mustard, half a dozen other plants. If you're laughing, it's because you don't know that we've lost 40% of our bird population in North America in the last 20 years because of developers building hard surface and not understanding the importance of native plants. I'll do a call out to Scott Redding. Scott is one member of staff that attended our Deep Roots Planet Native Conference about 3 weeks ago. Developers like me, I flatter myself that I'm in the forefront of long-term thinking. we are on a steep learning curve of how important native plants are. On April 27th, Gail Hart, in the conjunction with F&BC and the Missouri Department of Conservation, will be sponsoring Lee Summit's second Mo native plant sale at MCC Longview. And in your inbox in the next couple of days, we'll put a flyer. Missouri native plants are an important issue. Secondly, I'm here to speak in a qualified way in favor of the impact fee. Our company has been fortunate, I refer to it as dumb luck, to be in Lee Summit for the last 35 years. We've been lucky to work with large canvases. New Longview was our smallest development at 260 acres. Arbor Walk at 400. Winterset is now at 1,500. We have had the opportunity to design our stormwater systems, detention ponds as parkland and not just holes in the ground. We've had the opportunity to price our lots such that builders can benefit from the 10 miles of trails, 25 bridges, 200 acres of parks in a project like Winterset. We've donated land to Parks and Rec in both Arbor Walk and Winterset. I followed the council presentation, or the presentation of Mr. Snook a month ago, and appreciated the comments from the two nay votes in attempting to control the impact fee. Control is the wrong word. Attempt to lessen the impact in both the short term and in the dollar amount. And I respect that. As a former chair of EDC, I get that this will be back in front of council every year. Fees can be watched, and Mr. Snook called to task if that impact fee is not generating the results that we would hope. One of my favorite phrases over the last 30 years has been squint, and imagine what this looks like 50 years from now. Imagine if we don't do this and we lose an opportunity with 4,000 acres to ourselves. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good, sir. Thank you. Ms. Vollenweider, you're up.
And the turkeys too. Yeah. I'm using tricolor, a little different, but I'm going to be using this, Mr. Dunning. So I do which one? Doc. Yep, you got it. Teresa Vollenweider, 5201 Northeast Maybrook Road. I'm going to start off with this document. I actually copied this one for you because when I showed it before, you weren't able to see that pink line, which is the city came out on this date, December 1st, 2022. That was one of the days I got charged with trespassing because I was taking pictures of this stuff. And that is a center line mark. And the line over here that is that hot pink denotes like a survey line. So that's more than likely marking public right-of-way. Keep that in mind. That's an important one. Here's a picture, April 24th, 2022. When Stephanie Mullins said I was out trimming a tree, this is a big bush honeysuckle. And I was trimming this part that was in the right-of-way because I see delivery trucks hitting this all the time, and I decided I'm finally going to go in there and I'm going to trim that thing back. I also cut some bush honeysuckle that was down here. I did not take away this bush honeysuckle. I left it, but it's not really a tree. And it's not something that we want. April 24th again. I have then planted in here 20 asparagus here. I am not in the right-of-way with this. And I am south of the quarter line. I planted 20 asparagus here, 2 blueberry bushes, and 20 asparagus here. My property. April 25th, at night, boom. Neighbor tears it all out. Next morning, it's gone. It's all torn out. The plants and everything, gone. There's a picture. There's a picture. And what shows up that day? A no trespassing sign with a cartoon on it. I go back over and I put the bricks here to mark the quarter line. I'm getting sick and tired of this, people not understanding what they own and what they don't own. It's in your deed. It's in the legal description of your deed. Read your deed. It also says you don't own any part in the roads except that part in roads. You don't own any of the right-of-way, the land under the right-of-way. June 3rd, 2023. This is after my survey team has done the Alta survey. Boom. The no trespassing sign changes its location. It had always been way over here. But somebody said, you need to move it, it's wrong. More than likely, Bob Anderson, their surveyor. November 3rd, 2023. Just a week before my hearing's gonna occur. Boom. It changes again. Today, went out today, got a little scared, so I videotaped myself the whole time because I'm afraid I'm going to get harassment charge or stalking charge or another trespassing charge. So you can't see it, but in this circle is the no trespassing sign. It's creeping this way a little bit, but everybody knows that power pole and that quarter line goes on the north side of that power pole. Right-of-way line goes on the south side of that power pole. There it is again, right there. There's the no trespassing sign. I am going to take care of my property. I will plant on my property. Having taken survey classes, I have learned that I need to occupy and use my property, or someone might try to take it away from me. I am not trying to harass anyone. I am not trying to stalk anyone. I am trying to occupy and keep the land that I own.
Okay, Ms. Vollenweider, I gave you an extra minute today. Thank you. All right, that takes us to presentations. Mr. Dunning has a presentation about workforce investment initiatives, attraction, satisfaction, retention, championship teams, ASR as he refers to it. Mr. Dunning?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Baird and City Council members. Mark Dunning, City Manager. Get the presentation pulled up here. Okay, thank you for the time to present an initiative that we as an organization have been focused on, very focused on for over a year now. So thanks for the opportunity to introduce this, present it publicly, and not only to you, Mayor and Council, but to the community as well. As mentioned here, ASR, I'm going to reference that over and over in this presentation. It stands for attraction, satisfaction, and retention. And I like to think of this effort as we're building organizational culture focused on those key pillars, if you will. This presentation we want to provide a brief background and history as to where this came from. We'll hit on some priorities and areas of focus that we've put efforts towards. I'll enlighten you about how we went about this initiative through creating employee teams and doing some employee engagement. I'll wrap up with some prioritization of these ideas and recommendations and seek your all's feedback towards the end. So I was blessed to take over as the organizational leader in September of 2022. And I remember this management team meeting very vividly in October of 2022.
wanted to take some time and check the pulse of the organization. We had a lot going on. I'll share a little bit of those at that time to help you understand what we were dealing with at the time. But I kind of put a call out to management team unannounced. I just said, I want to know how people are feeling. And you could have heard crickets. They were like, what is he doing? What is he really asking us? And where I went with that is I wanted to know how people were feeling. I kind of felt a sense of a little bit of overwhelmed. We had a lot going on, new organizational leader. And after a few people spoke up, we started really thinking about what are we doing, right? Management team, we get together weekly and we go through what every department has going on, what's coming before the council, where are we at with certain initiatives. And it felt like we needed to get our arms around everything that was going on collectively as a leadership team. So we did that. We took time. We said, let's focus on big rocks, right? What are those major things that we should be focused on right now? And all these other things, let's be mindful of them, but let's really start putting some efforts towards what I called big rocks at the time. And we went through an effort to start identifying those. We didn't do it all in that meeting, but we did take some time to start listing some things out. So we intentionally took some time after that discussion to bring that to bear organizationally from every department's perspective and start to map that out. What we realized in doing that is we had, as I mentioned, a lot of projects and initiatives in motion. But on that list of concerns and things that we were grappling with were also a lot of things related to our workforce. So when I look at that list, I'll present it to you here in a moment, we could really categorize those in two areas, right? The things that we're trying to move forward as a community and as an organization, but then let's be mindful of our workforce. And I remember telling management team, in order for us as staff to be successful out there and delivering the services that this community expects, we need to be healthy. And so I really want to know how we're doing. And that's what's led us to this effort. So those projects and initiatives, this was in October, November at the time. If you might recall, we were preparing to bring forward recommendations for the no tax increase bond initiative in 2023. That was a mountain of work that we put together with estimates and things of that nature. Marijuana tax was coming forward. I'm not going to list all these, but I am proud of where we're at with all these initiatives from back then in October to where we're at today. But that was a lot of work. And this is not the full extensive list, just a smattering of some of those that came to mind. Turning our focus then towards that workforce, I call it organizational culture and organizational development. What we realized is that we were concerned about our ability to attract candidates, especially in certain areas of the city, and we're still working on some of those. Workforce attraction, workforce retention, and the level of satisfaction. I say satisfaction, I more think of that as is the work we're providing fulfilling and valued by the organization. A lot of things about our policies, opportunities to review those, update those, capacity, work-life balance types of concerns, employee engagement and communication, our hiring process, what opportunities could we improve on in those areas, our recognition programs, and then overall training and development throughout our workforce. As I think about these, I also think about when we did our strategic planning efforts, and we recognize that our people, our staff, our human capital is probably the biggest asset we have as an organization to deliver those services, and one of the biggest pieces of infrastructure when we think about people to do the things that we do. So I do recall that as we talked about our strategic plan. So ASR, attraction, satisfaction, retention, that is the umbrella that we kind of captured this workforce organizational culture, organizational development concept, if you will. And then out of that, we identified 5 priorities, 5 focus areas. And you can see them there: recruitment and hiring, salary and benefits, career and development, our physical environment. What we mean by that is our workplaces, the equipment, the tools that we use, things of that nature in our workspaces. And then data reporting, recognizing that when we make decisions, we capture so much data, we report on so many things, but how are we putting that into motion into our decision making? We recognize there's opportunities there as well. So how did we go about tackling this initiative? I'll start over here on this circle here. We as management team, our leadership team, recognize, who are we as the leadership team to start developing all these ideas and recommendations to bring forward. And what we decided on is let's put our employees, let's give that as an opportunity for our employees to chime in on this. So we did. We put out a call for interest forms, very similar to the way that an interested citizen might fill out a form to be on a board or commission. And it wasn't just simply, my name's Mark Dunning, I'm interested in this team. You had to tell us why you're interested, why you're passionate about it, and things of that nature. So that went out. We wanted to ensure that we had a mix of all departments at all levels. Within those teams, a good cross-section of the organization. I think about field staff versus office staff, things of that nature. We wanted to create a position to lead that team. We called it the team champion. We initially thought 9 people per team. That grew to about 13. We had a lot of interest from our employees to put forth towards this effort. And then over on this side, here's what we plan to do with these teams. We wanted to create clear responsibilities, do some research, report back, reassess, things of that nature. We wanted to look at our current practices and ask ourselves if we were to do it differently, what might that be? Not limit ourselves just to, well, we have a policy in place, that's what we stick by. Wanted to look at proposed improvements, and then not do a deep dive into these proposals, but at least enough information to be, I'll say, to be dangerous, to have a good idea of where this might take us, and what kind of measurements might we measure if things were to come into motion. Here's the approach we took to this team building then. As I mentioned, we put out the introduction to the whole organization as an opportunity. Management team worked on the template to bring these teams forward. We called them team charters. Here's the lanes in which you provide your efforts and your focus towards. We put out the interest forms, created a clear date that those would be due. Pretty aggressive timeline here, but we met it. Then intentionally, management team took all those interest forms and took some time to think through that cross-section of the organization. The champions of those had to specifically fill out on the form whether they thought they would like to be a champion of a team. So they had to do some additional work on that interest form to tell us why they thought they were the right fit to be that team champion. So in mid-May, we announced the teams, and then we took all 5 of these ASR teams, we put them all together, and we as management team were there as well, and we talked about an approach to doing this work together. So that was our team kickoff. We intentionally put a sponsor with each team. What the sponsor's role was, that's a management team member. So that's a director, fire chief, someone on our management team. Intentionally not the city manager or an assistant city manager. The role of the sponsor was to provide guidance, to be a support person, and to be a link back to management team. Not to do the work, not to sway teams one way or another, but to be a resource for those teams. I mentioned the champions. We identified those champions. We had plenty of people interested in being a champion for these teams, and then populated those teams with interested parties from those interest forms. So that's the way we went about building these teams. I would like to briefly show the composition of the teams. Not going to read every name on here, but I think it's important to recognize their efforts and their commitment. I say it this way. These employees did extra credit work to help us as an organization. So data and reporting, our sponsor there was Michael Park. Again, management team members as sponsors, and then our champion in that team was David Bushek. And you can see the mix and the diversity of folks from different departments that played a role in these teams. On the career development, Mark Schaufler was a sponsor. Amy Nassif out of Development Services was the team champion for that. I would venture to say that those team champions also allowed their team members to step up and be a leader, somewhat of a champion in certain initiatives as well. So we've heard great feedback from these teams doing this work. Salary and benefits, Brian Head as the sponsor, Chris Sandy with Water Utilities was the champion there. And then physical environment, Cheryl Nash, the sponsor, and Zach Nelson from our fire department was the champion for that team. And then lastly, recruitment and hiring, Josh Johnson was the sponsor, and Jennifer Vargo in HR was our champion. I would say this, I am proud of the work that these teams did. I'm thankful for the work that they've done. And Mayor, with your permission, I should let you all know, I intentionally invited all of those teams, every member, to come to this council meeting to watch this on the city's channel, because throughout this process, we've intentionally been very transparent, very intentional with our communications, our engagement with the employees, so that everybody knows where we're at in this process and what the teams have been doing their work together. So if it's okay with you, Mayor, if there are employees in attendance, I'd like for them to wave or stand, because I am extremely
Absolutely.
proud
Yes,
of
please.
this effort.
Thank you all for coming tonight.
So now we'll get into what did we do? So that May 24th was the kickoff. Every team had a charter. What was their charge? What was their mission? What was their area of focus? I intentionally told the teams, no boundaries, no parameters, think outside the box. Let's not just sit back and say, well, that's the way we've always done it. We just keep doing the same or similar. Let's think differently about this. We put together an aggressive 6-month target to go through their research, come up with their ideas, evaluate those, do employee engagement. We intentionally did an organizational survey, and I think I shared that with all of you, the data coming back from that employee engagement survey. Those teams intentionally went around to their departments, outside of the departments, talking with employees, soliciting feedback. And through this process, in them gathering the ideas and recommendations, we had periodic check-ins between management team and these teams doing their work. And then, of course, our sponsors were reporting back during management team meetings as well. So very connected effort as we went through this great work. So at our last check-in meeting before what I call the report out, we agreed that each team should look at their list of ideas, look at their recommendations, and prioritize 3 of those that we should start in on. So out of 5 teams, 3 priorities, we had 15 total priorities that were presented here in this chambers to the whole management team. So those teams got to present to each other. We had everybody here in the chambers, and they reported out on their top 3 priorities and gave us a little dive into where those recommendations came from and what we might expect from those recommendations. Intentionally, we said, don't discount any of your ideas, though. Also provide us that list, too. That's great work that's been done. I told the teams, I can't sit here and tell you we will do all of these or that they will all get done. We're going to have to figure out and prioritize and sequence these in order to bring them forward. So on January 10th is when that presentation was made, and I intentionally asked the teams, let management team carry the ball forward a little bit. With all these recommendations, let's think through how we could bring these forward. So a total of 43 recommendations received. 15 of those were priorities. As I looked through, as we worked through those at cabinet, what I refer to cabinet, that's the assistant city managers and myself, and then working with management team, we went through a sequencing effort and a resource allocation effort. And we're thinking through what's the level of effort to bring these forward, what kind of approval processes might be needed, what's the scheduling of these, timing considerations that should be considered, what kind of financial resources and impacts might these have, and then what kind of commitment are we making on behalf of personnel and tasking people to bring forward these ideas and recommendations. Out of those 43, 4 recommendations require mayor and council input and consideration, and that's what I'd like to highlight for you this evening. So these were all, out of the 15 priorities, these were priorities. These weren't what I'll call other recommendations. So a pay plan, and developing a pay plan and a salary growth plan, that is more than just a compensation study. That is a pay plan that kind of targets where should we be in market, but also what might we be considering for a salary growth plan. So that's planning for future years as well. Developing career ladders and progression plans, or career paths, if you will, for development opportunities. The variety of occupations and professions that we have in this municipality and local government is phenomenal. And if we can start connecting how you could grow from a certain position into another, we're helping people grow, and I can tell you I'm wired for that, and hopefully I know management team's wired for that, because everybody benefits from growth. Individual growth, team growth, our organization benefits from that. So we're trying to, in a way, I think of the pay plan and salary growth plan and the career ladders, progression plans, those 2 bodies of work kind of go together because they need to be intertwined. That's a big lift, and we know that would take a lot of time. Another recommendation, Missouri Local Government Employee Retirement Systems. We refer to that as loggers. So right now we're on what we call an L6 plan. with a final, the 5-year final average salary is the way they calculate that. And through the work of these teams, we've recognized that we could move to a 3-year final average salary, which does provide an enhancement to the retirement, to the pension plan. And there's been some good work to do some comparisons with other communities on where we're at versus where some of our comparators are at. So that's another recommendation, move from that 5-year final average to a 3-year final average. And the other one would be holidays. I will tell you that every one of these bullet points, these 4, have financial impacts, right? And the timing in which we bring these forward is kind of crucial as well, thus this introduction to you all this evening. On holidays, a recommendation of adding Juneteenth and Veterans Day to the list of city-recognized holidays. That's something that we would need to plan for from a financial perspective. I can get into a little bit, perhaps on this slide here. So that's the purpose for bringing this forward before we as staff put additional efforts towards these recommendations and ideas. Wanted to touch base with the mayor and the council to see if there's any feedback that you have, direction that you may have tonight. This is not to say we're approving of any of these tonight, but before we do any additional work, is there a comfort level to continue to work on these? I would say on the 2 that come to mind that we could immediately start in on, loggers, there's a change process that we would go through, and we could start that at any time. What that entails is we put out publicly what the valuation of that change would look like for a 45-day period. After that 45-day period, we can bring that initiative forward to council. I would assume we might come through finance and budget or to the full council with that and provide all the information and the data. And then once the council made a determination on that, after that 45-day period, then within 10 days of the council adopting an ordinance to make that change, we would need to notify loggers. And within that ordinance, the council would dictate a future month in which those changes would take place. So it's a fairly simple process, but there is a prescribed process to go through to make that change. With the holidays, it'd just be bringing that through our budget process. And I can tell you right now, as we're planning our fiscal year 25 budget, I am intentionally looking at these 2 recommendations to factor that into our budget that I'll be presenting to you in the coming months. Just a high-level understanding of those 2, because we have done some research on this. The loggers change would be about $512,000. That change from the 5-year to the 3-year. And we've already had the actuarial study done by loggers. That's already work that's been done. The holidays, if both were put into motion, that's about $120,000. In looking at that, we recognize that the summer holidays are a little more costly than a fall holiday. I will tell you we need to do a little more work in that area, but generally speaking, that's about $120,000 impact to add both holidays. So I've got an additional slide here too. I wanted to pause there and see if there was any feedback, direction, or if there's additional information you'd like on these. But I thank you for the time to bring these forward, and look forward to any opportunities we can take to advance the ball down the field on some of these ideas. And I'd be happy to share some of those other ideas that don't require council direction and feedback. They're more organizational level that those employees came up with. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Before we go around, I just want to summarize a couple things. You said that there's a total of 43 recommendations. After you put these teams together, you went through these processes, and we saw the timeline and such. 43 recommendations and 15 priority recommendations are what you focused on as city manager. And then after that, you looked at the 15 and said, okay, 4 we need to talk to council about right away because they're financial implications.
That's correct.
And when you talk about these 15 priorities and these 4, you didn't use this term in here, but I just need to, I don't want to assume, so I have to throw it out there. Best practices wise, comparing to other cities. When you say you've researched the numbers, the financial implications, you've also probably researched best practices, such as the 3-year loggers. That's one that I've seen the research on that you've provided before, I believe. That our comparator cities are providing the 3-year logger.
Spot on, Mayor. Yep, same thing with holidays. We've done the teams did an evaluation of other communities to see what recognized holidays other communities have and things of that nature, so we
Okay.
can
I just
we
want to
can
make
do
sure
those
that,
comparisons.
before we go around and that you do have that type of information, and that was all discussed in the meetings and such.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. Councilmember DeMoro.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Dunning, I want to hone in on the loggers, moving from a 5-year to a 3-year. You briefly gave a timeline of how soon that could happen, but I want to key in on the 10 days after ratification. You would notify. It takes 10 days, or you have to wait 10 days to notify.
No, loggers requests, and this is directly from loggers, if the council takes action on changing from that 5-year to the 3-year, that within 10 days, we notify loggers so they can begin to understand when those changes will need to take place. But it needs to, the effective date for that change needs to be a future month, right? Does that make sense?
Beginning of a month, rather
Beginning of a future month is the term they used, yes.
And it doesn't have to be the beginning of a quarter. It can be.
No, beginning of a future month.
And so, in my head, I'm just thinking a timeline. If we get through the budget, probably, and I'm not holding you to this, and I'm not, dictating a month, but probably the earliest month would be August, relatively speaking, if we were to do this.
Yeah, it would really depend, the timeline, in my mind, would depend on when do we publicly put out that valuation to begin that 45-day period.
Well, I've reviewed the comparative cities, and I was so surprised that we were one of the only cities, we may be the only one in the general area that is not on a 3-year plan, which has to affect recruitment and retention. So I think it's a good move. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Felker.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Dunning, for presenting. That sounds really exciting, actually, the presentation and everything that was involved. Certainly commendations to all those who were here and those who participated in it. I think that's great to be able to give the employees the opportunity to really have a voice in the experience they get to have as employees for the city of Lee Summit. So I think thank you to you and your leadership team for leading the process. I just was going to ask briefly the first 2 bullet points, the pay and growth plan, which is your first arrow here. What kind of a timeline do you see that taking in terms of just fleshing it out? Do you have a sense now of how long you think that would take? or is this kind of a first time we've ever never done this, and so or is there a process that you could mirror that you've seen done elsewhere that you could apply in this setting?
Yeah, taking the term from Mayor, right? We'd look for best practices, not try to reinvent the wheel here. We need to develop that scope to go out. We recognize we would need to rely upon additional outside resources to pull this together. So I don't have a good sense. I'm just thinking back. Our last, it was a compensation study, was in 2017, and that carried over into 2018. So it's a lot of work because we look at all of our job descriptions and we do comparators, and we got to make sure all our job descriptions are accurately reflect what we're doing. So it's a lot of work. It doesn't happen overnight. That's something that I would anticipate that would carry over. Let's say if we started today, that would carry over into probably into next year, and we need to start planning for that in the FY26 budget.
You know how many different job descriptions that would actually entail? Do you have I wouldn't think.
Well, I know we have about 776 employees, and then if I think through all the job descriptions, it's probably close to 250, I'm going to guess.
No, we're going to hold somebody.
I'm
to
seeing
that, right?
management team say, yeah, you're probably, yeah.
No one really knows, but yeah, a lot.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. And I mean, the career ladder progression plan. So the idea, I think you're saying here is wherever you're at, there's a path that you can say, hey, if I start here, here's some likely opportunities for me to grow in this role. Would this kind of plan also envision, hey, I'm growing here, but I want to look elsewhere? Does it entail that kind of thinking?
Could potentially, right?
Okay.
It could, right? And I can think of plenty of employees that started out in one department and now work for a completely different department. And a lot of that's just due to our committees and things that come together and work in teams, and you get exposed to that. And yeah, the career ladder, I think me individually, right? I didn't have it mapped out for me to start as a building inspector and kind of grow through the organization. But if that's kind of mapped out and you understand what it takes and entails and what those career paths might look like, then I think of like at the schools, right? Guidance counselors helping students understand where they might go and the path that they might take. We could do the same here.
And they'd have to have some kind of, like, just what you described, some kind of flexibility in that, because you're going to bounce in a direction never anticipated.
Right.
Would the idea be that there's kind of almost like, here's level, if there's E1, E2, E3, E4, and each organization has different layers? Is that kind of how it might end up, or?
Yeah, and a good example of that, we already have to some extent,
yeah,
right?
true.
I think of a staff engineer versus a senior staff engineer and things of that nature.
Well, thank you for answering the questions. I realize it's nothing you can answer with certainty or definition now, but thank you for thinking through it. Thank you to all those who, again, participated in the process. I think it's a great way of envisioning your future as a city, city employees. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilmember DeMoro?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Dung, I was a month off. I was thinking we'll have the budget wrapped up before July 1st. I said August. I was thinking the budget would go into July. Actually, July 1st, we have to have the budget done, right? So the timeline that I had mentioned August, I actually meant July 1st would be optimum for
Yeah, we could certainly hit
Yeah.
July with
I mean-
with some of these. That's correct.
And of course, it has to go through finance and budget, so the chairman is sitting here. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Shields?
Thank you, Mayor. So I know you're looking kind of for some general direction. I think these proposals that you're making make sense to do more work on. I think long-term as an organization, having those pay and progression plans are going to be really important. The loggers change sounds like it'll put us in line with our comparator cities. And the holidays, I think, are an important benefit that a lot of folks just really appreciate. As far as timing goes, are you, in your ideal world, do you want to put the notice out for the loggers change now, or did you want to take it to the Finance and Budget Committee to talk through first, or kind of what did you see the timing on? I wasn't 100% clear.
So from a timing perspective, as long as there's 45 days that they call it the valuation is out there publicly, it could be out there for longer, right? So, I mean, we could post that tomorrow just to get that process going if there was a comfort level. But I am fine bringing this more formally forward to Finance and Budget to take a deeper dive, do some of those comparisons, create a greater awareness before we do that. So preferably, knowing where we're at with some of the research on the loggers, I'd love to hit the next Finance and Budget meeting to create that awareness and gain a comfort level there and start that notice period.
I think that makes sense. I think it's a proposal that makes sense at a high level, but it would definitely be good to have a more full discussion. I think it deserves its own presentation.
We
So, yeah.
absolutely need to give you some more details on these proposals.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Thank you, Mayor. Kind of like everyone's already said, thank you and your team for taking the time and being proactive and strategic and, ASR. I mean, that's kind of the $1 million kind of phrase nowadays in today's workforce environment. In any sector, I think, good or bad, I mean, it's a reality. We have to find ways to recruit and retain good talent to come work for whatever industry or institution or company. I know you're trying to get some kind of guidance or direction from us. I've always believed that we're an amazing city. We've got so many great things going on here that in order to keep this momentum, I mean, your staff that executes policies that we implement, you guys carry those through. So strongly advocate of keeping good talent and recruiting more. All of these things, if they can be planned out and really thought through and vetted out, I'm definitely in favor of this. And timing of it, I mean, we'll take your lead on the timing. And if we go to committees, I mean, it's all transparent. It's public, meeting. So, yeah, I'd be in favor of it. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Dunning, we've got, I think you could, a couple of these, you can start on your timeline. I know from 5.5 years ago, the pay plan and salary growth plan, the career ladders, I mean, that was a huge task 5.5 years ago when we were trying to figure out how to get everybody back to what we called market, because we were below market. And then some people were way below market, some were just a little below market, and it just caused a lot of heartache, I'm sure, because some people got bigger raises than other people. So the fact that you're being proactive and trying to address this now instead of 5 years from now, whenever things get out of line, is fantastic. And the fact that you've engaged the staff and the employees and gotten their feedback, what is the priority, so we can hone in on what's important to you, because the market is changing. We talk about, what's important to an employee today is different than 20 years ago. And yet we still have employees that are with us from 20 years ago, so that there's got to be a variety of things you're working through. But I would just encourage you to put this plan in front of us as to how you think you would accomplish this, because I do remember it took a lot of resources on the compensation last time. And I don't know that, this is not a criticism, but I don't know that we had specialists, like, I don't know if you're gonna have to go outside to do some of this with, consultants. I know we did it in-house last time, which I was pretty proud of that we got it done, but I just wanna make sure we do it right, that's all.
And thank you for those remarks, Mayor. I can tell you, since that last one that we did that you just referenced, I feel a little more at ease, because out of that effort, we do have a compensation specialist that is very mindful for us as an organization to continue to check market and make sure we're staying up to speed as best we can since we've come from that compensation study. So, but yeah, you're spot on. Having the right process, having the right consultant to help assist us is paramount.
Yeah, but the other items are a little bit easier for us. Compared to cities, that's an easier presentation for you. So as soon as you can bring that type of thing for consideration, I'm sure council will deliberate.
Okay.
So, do you have any further comment?
No, unless you wanted to see some of the other recommendations. Really, the other recommendations are things that we can do ourselves and put resources to bear there. So this is not all of them, just some of the ideas that came up. A lot of development opportunities. I can tell you, when we talk about office furniture and employee training, as we go through our budget process, we are developing reports that show trends in certain areas to see if we're putting those resources to work for the organization. So really, I'm really excited about the work that's been done and the ideas and recommendations that came forward. And I will tell you, I intentionally told the teams I'm not scared of what they're going to deliver. And look, it's 43 recommendations out of those. 4 are big ones, but they're important ones. So thank you for the time to present and the feedback you've offered us.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. That takes us through the first presentation. We have a second presentation tonight. This one, Mr. Dunning, I think you're going to help lead the discussion or facilitate with me here. A letter agreement with the Lee's Summit Economic Development Council. So I'm going to try to summarize very briefly, and then you can dig into details. But a couple weeks ago, we put forth bullet points to you to put into a letter of agreement. Sometimes we refer to them as memorandums of understanding, but a letter of agreement. You and I believe, I'm guessing City, Mr. Head, drafted this, which basically you took the bullet points we gave you as far as a proposal to work on for the next basically 6 months with the current EDC to work towards getting us to a point where a PSA could be established, a public service agreement. And it just kind of had criteria in there with regard to, what we'd like to see as a city and what we'd like to offer in return to move this forward in 6 months. You've done that, you put that before us, and then I know that we had a couple council members forward their comments to council and you and Mr. Head. So I'm going to guess that you can help get us through talking about those considerations as well. So I guess we'll start with the draft letter.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you for the introduction, Mayor, and you're right, you're spot on. Staff took the, I'll call them the discussion points that was in the packet from March 19th, and I know Councilmember Felker put together kind of a matrix, a spreadsheet, and I tried to massage all that into this form of what we're referred to as a letter of agreement. So I want to make it very clear, this letter agreement is not a binding document. It's just, I really think of it as an action plan, and we'll say commitments on the city's part, on the Economic Development Council's part, to take steps to bring forward and to reestablish relationships and a working relationship in this. So we've got, I think of this document somewhat like the whereases of an ordinance, really, and we make it clear that that this is not a binding document and we're not committing any funds or anything here. And it breaks it down into action and commitment steps for the Economic Development Council and as well as the city. So if it'd be helpful for me to kind of go through these, I'm happy to do that. Or if you want me to just scroll through them, happy to do that as well. I don't know how in-depth you'd like for me to cover the document.
I mean, I don't think you need to describe these other than you could read them real quick.
Okay.
The LSCD action commitments to be pursued.
Yep.
So start with fill vacant.
Yeah,
board
so
positions.
Currently, there are vacancies in board positions and officer positions with the EDC. So one of those thoughts was, let's bring new thought leaders in and fill those positions under the current bylaws of the EDC. And then as we're doing, repopulating those vacancies, let's commit to what we're calling light programming. So those are luncheons. I know the EDC used to do a happy hour where folks would get together and collaborate and things of that nature. So that's what's referred to as light programming, as well as some other EDC functions that could take place. Adhere to the bylaws that are in place. You all know there has been a task force that has been put to task to develop a new set of proposed bylaws for the EDC that would expand that board of the EDC. So that draft is in place. It has not been presented to the EDC investors to vote on the bylaws at this point, but there would be that pursuit to adopt and implement those bylaws after the EDC filled the vacant board positions. And then once those bylaws were adopted, reorganize the board and officer positions per those new bylaws. As I mentioned, it would grow the board per those draft bylaws. And this is one, number 6 here, is to kind of taking a page out of our strategic planning efforts. EDC, create a vision statement, create a mission statement, and identify those core values to support those. We've done some great work with our ED best practices report and other, the 8 common success factors for highly successful economic development organizations. So we have a lot of great work product that the EDC could use and build what I'll call a strong foundation. So that's, I'll call it strategic plan light, to build that strong foundation, repopulate the board, and then after those, what's proposed is after we get those steps done, then in my mind, you start talking about an executive director to lead the organization, start talking about a PSA, a public service agreement, because you've got that strong foundation built. You kind of know what you're heading towards. It's not a full-blown strategic plan, but it's a step forward to build that strong foundation. So that's what's proposed in this document for the EDC side of the equation. As far as the city's commitment, continual engagement with the EDC at all levels, active engagement there. We would support them through their action commitments as needed. They'd let us know, are there things that we can do as a city? Can you help pull together other community partners for some of these activities and actions that would need to take place? So a commitment from us as staff to continue to help them with their work to get to that point where we're talking about that PSA. So that's really the high-level overview of this document. So I want to be transparent. As staff developed this document, this letter agreement, I felt it would be out of professional courtesy to share with Teresa Evans, the interim executive director of the EDC, which I did, because I wanted to know whether there was any what I call showstoppers or red flags that was not going to sit well with the EDC. Recognizing that that put a lot of pressure on the interim executive director. So I told Teresa, hey, I'm okay with you sharing this with the vice chair of the EDC, but it should not be shared with the whole board yet because we don't have direction from the whole council. I did that out of professional courtesy and did receive some feedback from the EDC that their concern, again, just a couple individuals, that if we do all this work and we don't know whether there's 6 months down the road, whether or not the appetite for a PSA is still there, then that's work that has taken place that maybe doesn't get us anywhere. So that was a little bit of their concern, and maybe massaging the language a little bit to say, let's not be so hard set to say all this has to take place, and then after that, only then will we entertain PSA discussions. So I think that was their feedback that I've shared, and I think that was their major concern with the document that Mr. Head and I put together.
Okay. To facilitate the discussion, we had a couple of council members give comments. So I think we could start there with changes maybe that they would like to see. We call it redlining, yep. They put their comments in and kind of exchanged their different ideas. I think that could serve as a great way to facilitate, so. Excuse me.
Mayor, I assume you're asking me to kind of talk through this, is that?
So Councilmember Felker did first the red line, and then Councilmember Shields, who's also in that attorney world, redlined it as well. So it was quite entertaining from afar. I am used to seeing this because of the business I'm in. But sure, Councilmember Felker, why don't you start us off?
It was thrilling, Mayor. We wish everyone would have had a front seat, so I guess we can do it now. No, thank you, Mark, for recapping, Mr. Dunning, for recapping your efforts, and certainly, again, appreciate you and Mr. Head for your efforts in putting this together. So I don't know that I'm going to review every small thing. Some of it was just the lawyer and me making a few changes. Really, the primary pieces that I felt reflected the concern you just identified, which was, okay, are we setting, do we have language that's saying, oh, you have to complete every identified step before you, the EDC board, come back with your request to enter into a public service agreement? Because I think, given the conversations we've had, I wouldn't say the logical end of this, but the logical end that's the new beginning is a public service agreement that reflects a partnership as between the city and the EDC. And so my adjustments were, and I think maybe even scroll up, Mr. Dunning, I think I might have, again, just kind of changing some of the language there was really to just try to, if you will, frame how I wanted to see that relationship going forward. And then going down in the under this extent paragraph, adding that if a party, which in this case would likely be the EDC, rather than just saying upon completion of those action steps, I included language that says, while perhaps they're pursuing the steps that you've listed below, that they might elect to come back to council and bring their proposal, including the a proposed public service agreement, and that they wouldn't necessarily have to complete every one of the steps below. And the idea being there might be reasons for instance, the way it was sequenced, that you and Mr. Head had sequenced it, had the request, the posting of an a new director, if you will. A new executive director is something that might occur after the first, is it 4 or 5 or 6 steps are outlined. And so in my mind, I thought, well, the EDC board and Ms. Evans may, in fact, determine that they want kind of a different sequence, or might want to be able to pursue hiring an executive director before all of these things are done. And in doing that, they probably would want to have, in terms of being able to pursue aggressively, an executive director that could be here, and I think, as we've discussed in this, with this body, a strong personality and capable individual to do that. They'd likely want to be able to show to that those applicants that the city is on board and ready to go with the actual financial commitment. And so that was part of my thinking with this language. Mr. Dunning, you can scroll down. With the other, I just thought, well, we are asking another organization how to structure what it's doing. So I know the mayor and I had talked about this, and I just thought a little bit more about how the EDC might say, we're going to kind of incorporate, if you will, the elements that we have worked on at this end. And so just changed a little bit of the language there. And then, again, really the balance of what I think I've revised in the next paragraph, and then again, down at the last of the bullets for the City Lease Summit was to really, again, just give the flexibility to the EDC that if they determined that there was a reason for pursuing the PSA with us at some earlier either time or before completion of every step that's been itemized, that this communicates at least that there's flexibility. And in my mind, I think, well, it's on the EDC's, it's on the board of the EDC to come back to us to convince us that that is a good step. And so, and I think that would entail many, if not all of those earlier steps even being in motion or having plans for how they will be in motion. Some of the steps, I think, are ones that are perhaps relatively simple to initiate. There might be a little more complicated to actually carry them out. But so, Mayor, members of council, that was, again, my thinking was just giving them a little flexibility, not wanting to kind of limit them to saying they had to exactly do every step. Not necessarily saying those steps are unimportant. I actually feel very strongly that those steps are there and should be carried out, whether in the exact precise sequence or after everyone's completed, whether it's before or after the PSA conversation happens, I think was something I felt like should have, again, some flexibility going forward. So, Mr. Dunning and Mayor, that's what I have.
Thank you, sir. So these, you can see Councilmember Felker's edits, and then Councilmember Shields was able to follow up and give her her recommended edits, if you want to pull that one up. Now, when you made these edits, Councilmember Shields, you made these on the original document, not on Councilmember Felker's, or on Councilmember Felker's?
I worked from Councilmember
Okay,
Felker's.
so she worked off Councilmember Felker's and then said, okay, there's going to be some things that I approve here, but here's some things that I differ on. And she also, being in her industry, made a lot of fixing of adding an S and dropping a S and apostrophe here and there, so.
You know, it's hard to stop once you start. So a lot of this is just cleanup. The things that are really substantive are, I thought it would be good to set a clear deadline, but also provide for the opportunity to have extensions. So to say, we want to see these actions done by October 15th. I picked that just because it's just a little bit more than 6 months from now to, you know, give them a week to look this over. But then with the option for 2 60-day extensions. So the idea for me being that I understand that this is an aggressive timeline, and I do want there to be some flexibility, like Councilmember Felker talked about. But I also want to see that if changes are needed, if extensions are needed, if targets aren't being hit, then I'd like to know before the expiration of that 6 months that they need some more time. And if then they're still not getting things done within that extension, to come back again and just say we need a little bit more time. And I'm open to discussion on what those extension terms should look like, if they should be a little longer or have a little shorter. But I just wanted to be clear that I'm not saying that if they go a day past this deadline that this is over. But I think it's really important to have a framework in place saying we do actually need to have these things done in a timely manner, and we do need to see this progress. And then once those actions are completed, then we could discuss a PSA. And in my mind, I don't see any way to discuss a PSA until this is all done, because you need to adopt the new bylaws, which are already drafted, so that's not difficult. You need to appoint the new board members. You need to know who you're actually negotiating this agreement with. I don't see how you could do it before that's done. And then I think it's important for them to do that strat plan light, adopting a mission and vision statements. Again, they need to know what they're trying to accomplish before they enter into an agreement with the city to accomplish those goals. So to me, that's just kind of like the basic structure that needs to be in place, but with the understanding that things like hiring an executive director, doing a full strategic plan, that may not be possible without city support. But I don't think that we could have city support until this new structure is in place. So I think that's the real, I'm not even going to say like difference between Councilmember Felker's draft and my draft, because I think we have the same kind of general vision, but just that I think there should be a little bit of a firmer structure in place with deadlines and ideas of how those deadlines get extended. That it's not just a deadline passes and 3 months later we hear, oh, hey, here's what's going on, that there needs to be some actual communication before a deadline is hit. So, and then some of this, the reason why there's so much redlining is because some things I just kind of moved around. I just thought it made more sense to have, you know, their actions, our actions, extension option. Just, again, once you start, you can't stop, and I'm sorry, I can't help being a paralegal. So to me, and I would defer to the mayor on how you want to structure this conversation, but I think that's kind of the general discussion is, do we want to put a firm deadline in place with extension options? Do we want to say these metrics need to be hit before a PSA can be in place, or is it a much more loose, here's the kind of progress we want to see, and at some point we'll discuss a PSA, like how much structure do we want to have and how firm do we want to be on that, is I think what I see the difference between our drafts. Thank you.
You agree, Councilmember Felker?
I think that's a great outline of where we're at.
Okay. Okay, so let me just ask Councilmember Felker, are you okay with a little more structure?
Oh, again, I'm a lawyer, you know, again, legal field, so structure is usually good.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm not a lawyer, so therefore, this is a letter of agreement. It's not a contract.
Right.
So I'm okay with the changes. It does help structure expectations and what we want to see, and intent, and it certainly shows good faith on all sides. And so, council members, are you good with the changes, or Or is there any other changes you'd like to see?
Which changes, since we're talking about two different drafts?
Well, we are, but Councilmember Felker, I would need your help as to what
Sure.
it is that she's changed that you may not be comfortable with.
Great question. So, and I think for clarity, and because Councilmember Shields and I talked about this before we came out here, this draft is an accepted version. If you know how red lines work, you accepted the version that I prepared and then began to make changes here. So, so generally, and I've looked through it, if I were to give my thoughts in that regard, do I have anything that I'm opposed to? Not really. The only thing and these words may not necessarily enter into this, and we talked a little bit about this, Councilmember Shields, earlier. We outline it this way and create it as these steps have to be achieved, and then we have a certain deadline, and then there's some extensions built in. I think the EDC should still feel very comfortable if they determine as they counsel together and as they deliberate to say, okay, these look like great steps, but we'd love to be at this juncture as opposed to that, at whatever step they feel that is right for them. I feel like they should be empowered as a body to say, okay, perhaps we do want to come back to the council a little earlier than 6 months. Maybe we've gotten a couple of steps done and we're 3 months in and we have a few more of those initial steps still to go, but after we've worked through it this far, maybe they feel like now's the time to go make a proper PSA ask. So to sum up my thoughts, I can be in favor of this. I also hope that as a council, as a body, and I know I won't be sitting here to have this conversation later, but I hope we as a body might be flexible if the EDC in fact determines that it may wish to pursue a path that's slightly different than what is outlined here. I think as a body that we can have that kind of flexibility, especially if it's well-reasoned, thought out, and it's forward-thinking, and it's aggressive. I mean, those are all the things that, at the end of the day, we want to see, and, what we're laying out for them. So if they came back with a response that said, hey, our action steps are just a little bit different, and we'd like to, do something to accelerate step A, B, or C, I think, I would, and hope that, again, that we might be able to get behind it. So, thank you, Mayor. And also, thank you, Councilmember Shields, for your efforts and giving some feedback and thought on this. I appreciate being able to work together on it.
Okay, yep. I agree with what you said, Councilmember Shields.
I think for me, there's always room for discussion going forward, but part of why I wanted to frame it this way is that I want it to be a clear expectation from the start that there actually do need to be some substantive changes made before we would consider funding, because that's what the PSA at the end of the day is taxpayer funding. And I feel like if we don't make it clear from the start in this letter that you actually do need to adopt bylaws, fill out your board, reorganize the board, and do some, mission statements. Like, I feel like there'll be a lot of frustration on both sides, to be perfectly honest, in 6 months if they say, well, we've not adopted new bylaws, but we've written a new mission statement and we're ready for funding, and we say, well, the expectation was that these steps would be completed. Like, I just think if there's too much flexibility in the document, that there'll be misunderstandings later. And so I think setting clear expectations is really important. And then there can always be discussion later. They can always come and ask to amend this, or they can make requests, but I don't want them to feel like the expectation is that you don't actually need to do all this. So I just,
Well, you did give them, you put extensions in there so that if they do need to ask that, they kind of have their timelines for asking for those.
There's some flexibility there, but I just want to be
In
clear
fact,
that
you give them 2
there's-
extensions.
Yeah, but I just want to be clear, there's not a ton of flexibility when it comes to adopting the bylaws and reorganizing the board, because I think those are really important, and we need to know, again, who we're negotiating with before we can enter into a PSA.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Could I comment?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so to be very clear, when I think about flexibility, I will second the idea that I hope, and this was maybe to be more specific earlier when I talked about like the easier steps that I think could be initiated. I certainly hope that, yes, there is an aggressive effort to fill the current board and then to pursue looking at, with that new body, or if you will, filled out body, to then look at the draft new bylaws, make any other additional adjustments, because new people in the room might have new ideas, and then get those behind them quickly. So, I mean, again, I think those are really good, and I would absolutely think those are important things. I really feel pretty passionate about the idea of initiating some light programming, whatever that is. I realize there's limited resources, both financial and personnel, so I hate to, to say exactly what that looks like, but sure would be great to start seeing some wheels turning a little bit as they try to get some momentum back. So, again, I think we're kind of almost seeing this exactly eye to eye. Mayor, I will support this as it's drafted. Again, I'm just kind of giving some language around it to say
Right.
that.
It gives context if we need to come back and look at this, 6 months from now, this meeting. Yep. Good discussion. Does anybody want to add to it? Thanks for doing a bit of the work for the council. Because you two kind of have been on differing, so it's nice to see that on our behalf. Mr. Dunning? You got direction? All right, we'll send this to the EDC and,
Just to be clear, though, Mayor,
Yeah.
I'll accept all those changes. Well, there already is a clean version.
Yeah.
So the EDC meets tomorrow.
yeah,
I think it'd be beneficial if I send that document to the interim executive director this evening so that the board members have advanced awareness
yes,
for their
please
meeting
do.
tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, give them, yeah. They should schedule a little more time between the meetings so that they're not rushed tomorrow during their workday to read it, but yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, we as council members, it's tough whenever I throw a change on the agenda with our city clerk the day before, because then you guys are already in your meetings with work and other commitments, so. But we have to, so thank you. All right, would you like to keep going, everyone, or would you like to pause? 5 minutes? Okay. We're going to recess we'll come back at 20 till 8, so that's about 8 minutes. We'll take a short recess.
Welcome to the Lee Summit Sign Department. We are going to walk you through our process from start to finish. We make signs as needed here. It's not like we just go out into the field and place a speed limit sign here, no parking here. Our traffic engineers, they go through and they'll do field studies. They'll send us down an engineering work order for us to go out, place new signs or remove signs as needed. Coming from the material, our blanks come in and they're just aluminum blanks. So we can put our white, our red, our fluorescent yellow, green, whatever. And basically what it looks like is just that there. Throw it up into the roller. And once we got it covered, take it to our work table here, and Tim will cut the corners, cut all the access off to where it's lined up right. As far as the plotter and the software that we use, there's a street name sign there, and he's gonna go ahead and print that out on the plotter so you can see the plotter and how it operates and runs. There's standards for the height, even just on letters on the sign blank. Basically what we have on the computer there is it's pretty much set up to those. And it goes through, it's got a very small but sharp needle that goes through and cuts everything out, letter by letter. Once that's done cutting, our next stage would be bringing it over here. Currently picking out the sign letters right now. We call it weeding or picking or however you want to call it. Next, putting it on the transfer tape. Then after it's taped, we bring it over to the roller. That's where we apply it to the actual sign blank. And we'll roll it through one time just to get the air bubbles out. And the last stage is basically just taking the transfer tape off the front of it. And there's a finished product of street name sign. We'll take you out to the field and show you our process that we go through. We're gonna go out and follow our sign guys and get something installed for you. This is where we check our underground utilities. Tim, you got AT&T?
AT&T's back here.
Evergy, Google, so we should be good to go. We normally put all of our stuff together out in the field. Then once the base is installed, we'll go ahead and put the post in there. We've come up to perfect. And that's how we do it. Simple, quick.
Traditionally, we think as police officers, those responding to law enforcement needs within the community. But honestly, we are there to serve our citizens, and our citizens do go into crisis. They do have mental health crises, and we're being called to those scenes on a regular basis. In order to help serve those citizens better, we did initiate the Crisis Intervention Team Program. These are officers that are specially trained to de-escalate crisis situations. Recently, we've brought co-responders onto the scene, licensed qualified mental health professionals housed within our police department, and they respond with those officers directly to those scenes where a crisis is occurring so they can interact with that citizen and get them the help they need right there on that scene.
The co-responders are either a bachelor or master level in a behavioral health related field. They wear plain clothes, they don't carry weapons or anything like that.
I have a police radio that I listen to all day. Listen for, those key words: mental health, behavioral health, crisis.
There's a lot of officers that just call for me. I have my own radio number.
I also have the ability to self-dispatch to them and say 982 is en route.
Officers en route, 914, Armstrong.
So typically I arrive after they've made it safe. I'll make contact and get kind of the rundown, and then I just kind of jump right in.
Like, hey, my name's Allison. I'm a mental health professional. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to take you to jail or arrest you.
Sometimes all a person needs is a voice, someone neutral, someone outside that, can listen. I do a lot of safety planning, including family, their support network, who's close to you. If they're home alone, who can come over and hang out with you today? Can we lock away your sharps? Can we put up your meds? Do you need meds? Can we get you over to the urgent care to get you assessed for your medications? Some of them also are like, oh, I'm so glad you came. This made me feel so much better.
Our main goal as co-responders is to, one, get people connected to the services that they need, and also divert from emergency rooms and jails.
And they almost get a different view of the police responding. That lets me know you care and the officers care.
Please, how can we help you?
My husband has...
In 2020, we had 722 mental health related calls for service. 2022, by that time, 1,479. These mental health related calls for service are increasing. How we're responding to that is increasing the number of crisis intervention team officers we have available, as well as the number of co-responders we have available to respond on these calls.
So what I think is important for the community to know about the co-responder program is that we're here, we exist. All you have to do when you call 911 is ask for us. Say, hey, I want a co-responder to respond to this crisis, and we'll go. I was really struggling about 8 years ago on my personal journey with mental health, and I met some amazing social workers and amazing programs that have helped me get to where I am today. I really couldn't see myself doing anything else. We want to help, and that's what we love to do.
So I had a client, we got a call, she had some suicidal ideations, and she really felt that she had nobody. And and getting to know her story and getting to know who comes around and sees you. Well, then we found a support person, and they responded immediately. And we made a plan. I called back and checked on her in an hour, and then I checked on her in 2 hours. We were able to get her into the additional services to where she talks to someone every week or more. I just took a person that really just thought they had nobody and nobody would show up for them, and show them you do. And you'll be amazed who is in your corner if you just simply say, I need a little help.
When the person called on the phone, she said that there was a dinosaur walking down her road. Of course, we had to go out and check that out. We get out there and it was a big African tortoise, probably 60 pounds, walking down the road. When they walk, they really stand up tall, so I could see why she thought it was a dinosaur. I'm Rodney Wagner. I'm the manager of Lee Summit Animal Control. So as you can see, we get all sorts of animals here. You got some guinea pigs off to the side. All the windows up here are animals that are adoptable right now. Every one of these dogs is ready to go and ready for adoption. And the same thing with our cats over here. A lot of cool cats in here now, so this is our 3-acre lot we have out back. This is where we do all the walking of dogs, exercise. We also have a side yard off to the side over there, so we can let them run loose. They can run together, and we have what's called play groups. Kind of like having a bunch of kids. Here's our vet room. We have a vet that comes out twice a week. This is our Sally Port where we bring the animals into. This is one of our animal control trucks, and we can hold up to 6 animals. We have a lift on the other side to put big animals in. We actually have temperature gauges in here and in the truck to tell us how hot it is. Once it gets to a certain temperature, we bring all the animals back here immediately. So this actually has traps in it, but we do a lot of wildlife trapping. I mean, a lot. So bats, potbelly pigs, horses, cows, emus, a lot of reptiles. We had a citizen one time that had over 200 reptiles in his basement. Caimans and alligators in here that are 4 or 5 feet long. You can't keep those. And people do, and they're surprised when they can't keep them. I'm like, really? You're surprised you can't have an alligator in your house? Our main goal here is public safety and also the safety of the animals. And we have very dedicated people back there, and they definitely stay here for the love of the animals, which also includes getting them adopted out. We'll have about 4,000 impounded animals a year. Probably about close to 2,000 are dogs and cats. The cats and dogs, when they get impounded here, they go on a 5-day hold. And then after the 5 days, if the owner doesn't show up, then we can put them up for adoption. To adopt an animal here is actually really simple. You just come in, look for whatever animal you're looking for, find the right pick. You go to the adoption room up there and see if you get along with them. You spend as much time as you want to in there. From that point on, it's just a matter of making sure they're spayed or neutered and all their vaccinations up to par and they're good to go. We have a very high adoption rate because we try everything in our power to get animals adopted out. We have Heart of America, a Humane Society that we do a lot of adoptions through. And then we also have other groups. We have some people that literally will just look all over the country for somewhere for a dog to go. And we sent dogs up into South Dakota, North Dakota, Washington State. So it's actually, it's a huge united effort to get all these animals home.
Tarzan's got lots of energy. Hazel's got a weird meow. Bell, she wants nothing to do with the other cats. She'll kind of get her grumpy face going.
And the good thing about the people here is that they get all their friends to get animals too. All of us have probably the limit of all the animals that we can have at home. You know, they are huge animal lovers. If it was up to the people here, we'd have 15 cats running around in here. We had a citizen one time out there and he was bathing his 2 9-foot-long boa constrictors in the front yard. Apparently that was garnering some attention, and so we went out there and had to have a talk with him about that. Why do I do this job? Oh, dude, I love this job. I grew up on a farm, and taking care of that many animals, you can't help but like animals. This is just like fancy farming. You know, you're just bringing animals in here, taking care of them, and find them homes, and yeah, absolutely animal lover.
I'm Assistant Chief Jim Eden.
And I'm Battalion Chief Ben Hicks.
And today we're at Lee Summit Fire Station 3. Fire Station 3 was part of the 2016 no tax increase general obligation bond for public safety initiatives. The station was built and occupied in August of 2020. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we've not been able to give tours or have an actual ribbon cutting. So we want to invite you in today to give you the opportunity to see what goes on within a Lee Summit Fire Department station.
Let's go take a tour. This is our admin side of the facility. We use this side mainly for offices. We have a lot of work during the day, whether it's training or doing reports or just generally taking care of the shift that we need to do. At this particular station, Station 3, we do have an assistant chief that works out of here. That person has their own office where they need to manage what's going on throughout the day with the shift and staffing, and as well as running calls out of here. The captain has their own office as well. What the captain does is at this specific station is in charge of both the fire truck that's here as well as the ambulance. And so with all those personnel responsibilities as well as running calls and reports, that's where they work out of. And generally for the rest of the crew, which is somewhere around 5 to 6 individuals, we have rooms to write reports, and we have additional training rooms and other rooms where people can work. Walking into our living area, I think it's important to recognize that we work 48-hour shifts. So in the evenings, after 5.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're going to bring this meeting back to order at this time. We have made it to agenda item 7A, proposed ordinances forwarded from committee. Councilmember Shields, would you please start us off with bill number 24-064?
Thank you, Mayor. I move for second reading, bill number 24-064, an ordinance approving amendment number 12 to the budget for fiscal year ending June 30, 2024, is adopted by ordinance numbers 9704, 9705, 9706, 9707, and 9708 by amending the authorized expenditures for the city. I want to note that I did ask legal counsel if we could drop saying the word ordinance 10 times every time we read those, and they said yes.
Well done. Okay, we have a motion to move to second reading, bill number 24-064 by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Council discussion. Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Passes 9-0. Councilmember Shields, would you please?
Thank you, Mayor. I now move for adoption of bill number 24-064, an ordinance approving amendment number 12 to the budget for fiscal year ending June 30, 2024, is adopted by ordinance numbers 9704, 9705, 9706, 9707, and 9708 by amending the authorized expenditures for the city.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt bill number 24-064 by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Hodges. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It's unanimous, and it is adopted. Thank you. Councilmember Edson, would you please read bill number 24-065?
Thank you, Mayor. I move for second reading of bill number 24-065, an ordinance approving the 2024 Combat Drug Commission LESBI agreement by and between the city of Lee Summit, Missouri, and Jackson County, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor to execute the same by and on behalf of the city.
All right. Is this, this is a motion to move to second reading bill number 24-065 by Councilmember Edson, seconded by Councilmember Hodges. Is this your last motion, possibly?
Yes.
I mean, because you will be here next time, but I don't know that you'll get to read something unless we make
I may
one up
not.
for you. So,
And I wanted to make sure I was reading it clearly
and emphatically.
slowly,
Yes.
so everybody could understand it.
Yes, well done.
Thank
Very
you.
impressed. Okay, and it's about Combat Drug Commission Agreement, which that fits too. Yeah, something that you would endorse. So with your motion and the second, is there discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It's unanimous. Councilmember Edson, would you please read for adoption?
Thank you, Mayor. I move for adoption of bill number 24-065, an ordinance approving the 2024 Combat Drug Commission LESBI agreement by and between the city of Lee Summit, Missouri, and Jackson County, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor to execute the same by and on behalf of the city.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt bill number 24-065 by Councilmember Edson, seconded by Councilmember Shields. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. That bill is adopted unanimously. Thank you. Councilmember Pryor, would you please read Bill number 24-066?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to advance to a second reading, Bill number 24-066, an ordinance authorizing award of bid number 2023-059 for the purchase of a fire station alerting system for use by the fire department to Westnet LLC in the amount of $940,321.14, and authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for the same by and on behalf of the city.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 24-066 by Councilmember Pryor, seconded by Councilmember Hodges. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It does move forward unanimously. Councilmember Pryor, would you please?
I move for adoption, Bill number 24-066, an ordinance authorizing award of bid number 2023-059 for the purchase of a fire station alerting system for use by the fire department to Westnet LLC in the amount of $940,321.14, and authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for the same by and on behalf of the city.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-066 by Councilmember Pryor, seconded by Councilmember Hodges. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It's adopted unanimously. Thank you. Councilmember Hodges, would you please read Bill number 24-067?
I move to second reading Bill number 24-067, an ordinance approving the award of contract number 2024-005-2 to facilitate the implementation of the Workday Enterprise Resource Program and Human Capital Management Solution to AVAAP U.S.A. LLC, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same for the city.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 24-067 by Councilmember Hodges, seconded by Councilmember Pryor. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It moves to second reading unanimously. Councilmember Hodges, would you please?
I move for the adoption of Bill number 24-067, an ordinance approving the award of contract number 2024-005-2 to facilitate the implementation of the Workday Enterprise Resource Program and Human Capital Management Solution to AVAAP U.S.A. LLC, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same for the city.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-067 by Councilmember Hodges, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. That bill is adopted unanimously. Thank you. Councilmember Lovell, would you please read Bill number 24-068?
I move for second reading Bill number 24-068, an ordinance approving the award of contract number 2024-005-3 to provide the installation, training, and integration of the cashiering functions with the Workday Enterprise Resource Program to Can-Am Technologies, Inc., and authorizing the city manager to execute the same for the city.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 24-068 by Councilmember Lovell, seconded by Councilmember Hodges. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. That bill moves forward to second reading. Councilmember Lovell, would you please?
I move for adoption Bill number 24-068, an ordinance approving the award of contract number 2024-005-3 to provide the installation, training, and integration of the cashiering functions with the Workday Enterprise Resource Program to Can-Am Technologies Incorporated, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same for the city.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-068 by Councilmember Lovell, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. The bill is adopted unanimously. Thank you. Councilmember Felker, would you please read Bill number 24-069?
Certainly, Mayor. I move to advance to second reading Bill number 24-069, an ordinance approving the award of contract number 2024-005-1 to provide a complete enterprise resource program and human capital management solution to Workday, Inc., and authorizing the city manager to execute the same for the city.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 24-069 by Councilmember Felker, seconded by Councilmember Hodges. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It does move forward unanimously. Councilmember Felker, would you please?
Mayor, I move for the adoption of Bill number 24-069, an ordinance approving the award of contract number 2024-005-1 to provide a complete enterprise resource program and human capital management solution to Workday, Inc., and authorizing the city manager to execute the same for the city.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-069 by Councilmember Felker, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. That bill is adopted unanimously. We are going to move forward now to propose ordinance's second reading. Mr. Dunning or Mr. Head? This first one, I've got on my notes here to postpone to a date certain, May 21st, so I can have Mayor Pro Tem Lopez read that. Or do I need to read the bill and then we have somebody make a motion? Because it has right here that he's supposed to read the motion to postpone. So what are we doing on this?
I believe you should read the bill and then have a motion to postpone. So it needs to be read for
Okay.
for final approval, but then needs to be postponed.
Would you read for second reading? Hold on one second. Or do you need to? Councilmember Felker, please.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. So bills number 24-025 and 24-056, I will be recusing from both.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, would you please read for second reading, and then we will address a postponement.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I move for second reading Bill number 24-025.
I think you're moving for adoption.
Oh, for adopt, yeah.
Yes, we are moving for
Let me
adoption.
retract that. I move for adoption, Bill number 24-025, an ordinance approving a preliminary development plan for land located at 3100 Northeast Carnegie Drive, all in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 33, the Unified Development Ordinance of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Lee Summit, Missouri.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-025 by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion. Now I need a postponement from someone. You want to go ahead, sir?
I'll do it, sure.
Or Councilmember Shields will do it.
I move to postpone consideration of bill number 24-025 until a date certain of May 21st, 2024. Is that?
Okay, I have a motion to postpone to a date certain of May 21st, 2024 by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion. Do we want to get into discussion? All right. Seeing none, please cast your vote on the postponement. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It does get postponed to May 21st, 2024. We're going to do the same thing with Bill number 24-056. Councilmember Shields, would you please read that bill for adoption?
Thank you, Mayor. I move for adoption of bill number 24-056, an ordinance granting a special use permit for motorcycle sales, rental, or service with outdoor display in District CP2 on land located at 3100 Northeast Carnegie Drive, for a period of 20 years, all in accordance with Article 6 of the Unified Development Ordinance of the City of Lee Summit, Missouri.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-056 by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion. Or a motion, please. Who would like to do the motion? Councilmember Edson, please.
I move to postpone bill number 24-056 to a date certain of May 21st, 2024.
I have a motion to postpone to May 21st, 2024 by Councilmember Edson, seconded by Councilmember Shields. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. That is adopted, or the motion to postpone is unanimous, 8-0 with one recusal. Thank you all on that. And then we have one more on second reading. Councilmember DeMora, would you please read Bill number 24-041?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to advance to second reading, or for adoption, Bill number 24-041, an ordinance adding Article 3 Parks and Recreation impact fees to Chapter 19 Parks and Recreation of the Lee Summit Code of Ordinances.
Thank you. I have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-041 by Councilmember DeMoro, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez. Discussion? Okay, Councilmember DeMoro.
Thank you, Mayor. To this date, this is the sixth presentation on this subject. I still have questions on why we would allow a fee that would penalize residents purchasing homes and would send a negative message to potential new residents that there is a mansion tax in Lee Summit, and the efforts to solve attainable housing have been abandoned. Furthermore, new commercial or industrial development could perceive the same message. Bill, earlier today, Bill 24-025, I believe, The ordinance ratifying the MOU that includes land dedication from SLR was ratified tonight, so we don't know how much land possibly will be dedicated to parkland or public use. The fee on commercial and industrial development will be added into incentive requests that come forward, therefore making the fee counterproductive. We would be giving up revenue from the incentives to charge a fee. That would all be in the incentive packages. One solution would actually be to ask the public for a new tax and let the residents of Lee Summit decide through a ballot issue if another revenue stream is needed. When the Parks Fund balance actually right now are over $24 million, and the sales and use tax that flow into the parks are currently at $4.5 million year-to-date 2024. For that reason, I am offering a substitute motion. I move to table Bill 24-041.
Okay, I have a motion to table Bill number 24-041 by Councilmember DeMoro.
Second.
All right, I have a second by Councilmember Hodges. Discussion. All right, I'm going to clear you, Mr. Councilmember DeMoro. I can come back to you. Councilmember Shields.
I guess I had just discussion generally of the underlying bill.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Right now, we can discuss the underlying bill. I don't want to say you can't talk about that. You can talk about that. And then but we need to, when we do eventually vote, it's going to be first on the motion to table it. So please go ahead and speak to your points.
Okay. So yeah, I've thought a lot about this bill. I wasn't here for the initial discussion. I was out of town, but I did watch y'all's discussion of it. I think it was a good discussion. I think the points that Councilmember Pryor raised at our last meeting about wanting a little bit more clarity on what that fee would look like were very fair. I did have a chance to sit down with Joe Snook and talk a little bit about what this might look like and kind of what a range of fees would be. And I think when it does come time, assuming that we adopt this, when it comes time to discuss the actual fee structure, which I assume will go through the Finance and Budget Committee, that there would be a chance to talk about what the different levels of fee would mean in terms of the level of service, and I like that. I think that Mr. Snook is going to work on some information about that. You know, that if we adopted a fee that was $100 a bedroom, here's the amount of parks we'd be able to build. If we adopted a fee that was, you know, $300 a bedroom, here's what it looked like, just to give us kind of a range of options. That I see this as not a yes or no to, I mean, there is a yes or no question to the fee, but it's not a just an on-off switch. It's kind of a dimmer switch that we can choose what level we want to set it on based on what level of service we're trying to provide. And I think the point that the PRI SLR land is essentially a city within a city that we're trying to build out, I think is a well-founded point. And we have a lot of fees that do impact new development for good or bad, but we recognize that a new development of any kind does have impacts on our city. That's why we have things like water tap fees and why we, you know, require certain infrastructure improvements and different things. I think this is kind of in line with that. So I think it'll be really important to have a discussion of what exactly that level is, and making sure that it's set at a fair level. But I'm not opposed to adopting this structure, which then allows us to have that more full conversation first in the Finance and Budget Committee and then as a full council. Because at the end of the day, the Parks Board, the Parks Department, they can recommend something, they can tell us what they can do with that, but it's going to be a council decision on what to actually adopt. The only other thing that I wanted to discuss, and I don't know if there's really any appetite for this on the council, but would be to delay it a little bit further. I think right now we have a start date of January 1, 2025. And I wonder if pushing it out another 6 months or so, the only thing that I don't want to see is to be throwing a wrench in the plans of someone who's planning to invest in Lee Summit, has all their ducks in a row, but can't quite hit that deadline. So I feel like pushing it out just a little bit further so that we're not making something that somebody can't plan for. You know, that we always hear we can deal with anything as long as it's predictable. So it just seems to me like a January 1 start date, that's only, what, eight months out, a little over 8 months out, that it's pretty quick for someone to be able to turn around and get to the building permit stage, even if they are pretty far along in the planning for whatever development they're working on. So I would be interested to see if there's any interest from my fellow council members to maybe adjust that date a little bit, but I'm fine with adopting this structure and then discussing the actual fees later. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Pryor.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, so mine was actually on the original before Councilmember DeMoro's motion, but I had, well, because I'm terrible at math, I had someone else that's a mortgage broker run numbers. So I know that 400, what is it, 350, 250 to 350 a door, average 4 doors. So $1,000 over the lifetime of a loan, a 30-year loan at 7% interest, ends up being a $2,394 fee that homeowner gets charged based on the park's fee, or the $1,400 fee, which I believe is $350 a door with 4 doors, would be $3,351 over the lifetime of a loan. So it ends up being a lot more than just the proposed, what sounds inexpensive, the $250 a door or $350 a door. It ends up being quite a bit more of a fee, which I'm really struggling with. And as Councilmember DeMoro said, we're going to end up getting for the commercial back in incentives. It's going to come back before us in incentives. Again, I don't think that a parks impact fee is bad, and I'm not against a parks impact fee. I'm just really cautious, and I do like what Councilmember Shields said, having the breakdown of the fee structure and then what we can expect. I'm just really cautious to have the fee be too high initially. I'd rather start low and then potentially go higher if we absolutely need to, but I'm really cautious about starting it as high as was proposed in our packet. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Edson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would support Councilmember Shields' proposal of moving that date back. But just as a reminder, the vote tonight is just whether or not we are supporting the impact fees at all, not the rates. So that's really the question at this point in time to me. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Felker.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate and thank everybody for their comments and all the work that's gone on with the Parks Department, certainly Mr. Snook and all of his team and the board that have put in a significant amount of effort. Certainly appreciate also, I always appreciate the dialogue and even opinions and viewpoints that may be different than where I might fall on the issue. So as I think about this, I think, we're a premier community at Lee Summit. I think there are many reasons we are, but certainly Parks is one of the reasons we are a premier community. And in my mind, I think all of us at some point have benefited from our existing park structure. And the reality is we're now, yes, we're facing a situation where we have to plan the development of another city within our own community, which is just fabulous. And this is probably not just one thing, but there's probably many different things that we as a council will have to consider. I speak as if I'll be here. That the council will have to consider and evaluate, and staff will have to consider and evaluate over the years to say, well, hey, this is coming. What are we going to do to prepare for it? And this is one of those things that allows us to be forward-thinking. It gives us the flexibility to do that. I know I often share this. My father-in-law has a history of working in parks and other similar areas. Was the park planner for a city in Montana for several years, and the observation again throughout the parks community is we are one of the premier communities in the nation, and that's because the citizens supported the financial structure that has been in place for so many years. Now we face something that's unique and different. Again, we've never faced a situation where we said we know that 4,000 acres is going to come online in some time frame, 5, 10, 15 years, and are we prepared for that? This is something I think that helps us get ahead of the curve. I'll also just kind of remind us as council members that the impact fee, as it's been outlined, does not even cover the objectives that the Parks Board has presented to us as members of council, meaning they provided certain goals and, if you will, to be able to not only keep the ratio of parks land to city, developed land to where it's at, as well as engage in some other significant projects that we've looked at. And I think as a council, again, I won't speak for everyone now, but we certainly at the time expressed at least excitement or support about what Mr. Snook had presented to us several months ago. This impact fee doesn't even fully address that. So the question about how do we support these future endeavors, the council is still going to have conversations about supporting, maintaining the status quo, if not trying to elevate our presence as a parks supportive community. In regards to this question about commercial and incentives that may come, I mean, I just say, it's our job as council members to evaluate what comes before us. Incentives are discretionary, meaning unlike some of our other things that we have to review with a certain legal standard where we can't necessarily just say no to something because we don't like it. Incentives we can, and if the numbers don't work, if we think there's a developer who's kind of trying to either in a situation where they're being penalized or trying to avoid something, I mean, that's council's job, is to evaluate it in the moment. So I don't know that we can just say because incentives may come into play later doesn't mean we shouldn't improve something now that can be a great tool for helping us get to move forward in the future. I also just want to think about this impact on housing, and yes, $3,000 is a lot of money, but spread over 30 years, it's not. Yeah, it's $100 a year. So I think our focus on how this is impacting the price of housing is not. It's not as damaging as I think it's being presented. That's my opinion. Yes, every dollar counts. I've certainly budget now. I've budgeted in the past when I was a new homeowner. Certainly still have expenses that I'd prefer not to have and wish they were lower. So anytime I can have a reprieve on something, I think I'm not like anyone. I'm like probably everybody else wants to decrease that. I just don't think the impact is such that we can use that doesn't dissuade me from doing that. And when it comes to housing, and we often talk about this target, this 250,000. I'm not sure what the number exactly is. What's this starter home, this first-time home buyer amount? We don't see it in our community, with the exception of that we do have a number of homes that are maybe not on the market now, but certainly a number of homes that may fit that profile numerically, financially at least. And I would still love to have a conversation, Mayor. I know that this is not necessarily the scope of what we're talking about today, but in the future, I hope there's another more robust conversation about what does it actually mean for a developer to sell a home, build a home, sell it for $250,000 to $350,000. So as I drove home from St. Louis last Friday along Highway 40, just before Warrenton, to my left, so south of Highway 40, there is a development. We'll call it, actually, it's Truesdale, so just right before Warrenton. And in it, they had the big sign, you see when you see a development and it said from the 200s and 300s. And I said, someone's doing it somewhere. Someone's building starter homes, because I could see some of them already built, and I could see where they had laid the ground. Now, is the community the same as Lee Summit? Probably not. I don't know that, I'm not an expert in terms of whether those costs there are going to be the same here. But I have to ask the question, why aren't we getting proposals of that magnitude, of that kind of build? And it's not our job as council to necessarily dictate how that happens, but I think there certainly, could be a good question and answer with our building community to say, what would it take? And why, if it can be done in certain communities, Why can't it be done here? What are the barriers? I mean, I can do a Google search. How can I build a home for $250,000? I start getting some things I can click on that say I can order a package of how to do that. Well, I don't know exactly how that works, but I think it's a conversation to be had, and I would just suggest that the council might entertain that conversation in a more robust way, because I don't think this conversation today is really about the affordability of housing, the park impact fee, but I think there could be a much more robust conversation. So, to respond to the motion, I'm not in favor. I'll vote no on the motion. Certainly will vote in favor of the impact fee, and I would be supportive, with Councilmember Shields' suggestion that we might postpone the date. I don't have a problem with that. I'll, again, just come back to the members of council that as we look at what opportunities we have to develop parks in the future, just remember this is really not even taking a full bite out of the apple. It's taking just a small bite. I think I wish I could remember the percentages now, but the amount that it's actually addressing is certainly not the full amount. So again, Mayor, thank you for the time, and that's where I stand on the issue.
Thank you. Councilmember Lovell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just since Councilmember Falker was on it, I agree that I think, trying to tie this into affordable or attainable housing, I think is, I just don't think it's fair to suggest that this fee is playing a role in that, and certainly conscious of any extra fee that's required to build a home, but I think that's just kind of a lowest common denominator argument that is really meant to tug on emotions, and I don't think it really has a lot of merit to what we're discussing here. If I look back to that presentation, the one thing that we kept coming back to, and I thought we were all in agreement with, was the predictability of putting in a park impact fee and the predictability of revenue sources, in that it would require developers to come to the table every time there was a development. And right now, we don't have that, even though it happens all the time. It happens with home builders and the parks that they build inside the communities. It happens with commercial development. But what it requires is that we reach out and we begin a negotiation phase. Let's take that away. Let's get rid of the subjectivity. Let's put some barriers and parameters around what is required and what goes to parks, so that we have a seat at the table every time a development comes in. And if a home builder wants to come in and add a park, well, maybe they're not subject to the park impact fee. That lowers the impact on the parks that the city has to service. There are all kinds of ways that you can do this, but to say that this wouldn't have, there's going to be a fee paid eventually. Again, I don't know why we wouldn't look to create something that's more predictable, like developers want, and that there's actually kind of a bar as to what is expected, and then allow us to come to the table and work through those things collectively. In regards to the PRI land or the SLR land, what better way than to say, hey, Mr. Developers, you're coming in and master planning this, is like, here are some of the park impact fees that we have in place. And we can, again, this is to say this is a good idea moving forward, because it gets us a seat at the table every single time. And what we decide on the fees, I'm fully open to negotiating those and coming up with something that's fair and reasonable, and even putting, whatever parameters there might be in there that, that you can get away from that fee if you do a park inside your neighborhood or whatever that might be. So again, I don't get the vitriol and kind of some of the emotion towards some of these talking points. Again, I felt like when we talked about this originally was, this gets us a seat at the table, it's very predictable, it sets a standard, and we do this anyway. Why not make it easier to do business with developers and have this stuff set? So I'm not in support of tabling it. I am in support of passing the parks impact fee, and then coming together and figuring out what those fees look like collectively, and then have no problem, as Councilmember Shields said, is, if we wanted to push it back 6 months, I've got no problem with that too. So thanks, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Okay, Mr. Denning, could I get a little help on, so I want to frame the discussion. Again, very similar to what Councilmember said. Right now we're voting on whether or not we're going to eventually take up a park impact fee, and we'll determine the amount later. But right now, we're talking about moving forward with a park impact fee, which then would initiate us to consider exactly what that charge would be, right?
That's correct. This is the structure, is the way I
And
put
so
it.
last meeting, the reason we postponed this was we wanted to see a discussion with the HBA, which we've been informed that at least a discussion was had. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, yes, Mayor.
And then secondly, I did request Mr. Snook provide information with regard to comparators and best practices so that we could have an idea of what that might mean, even though we have recommendations from the Park and Rec. And we, like Councilmember Lovell said, we kind of somewhat had consensus on a possible range that was in alignment with the parks. But at the same time, we wanted more information. So I would like to, even though it's in the packet, I would like you to put that on display. I would like you to open up the packet and show, it's a considerable amount of information that he's provided with regard to comps. So that the reason I would like this to be shown on the screen is because I think, do it from your computer? I think when you look at the comparator cities, when you look at the information he's provided, there's been a ton of homework on this. The parks did not pull these numbers out of thin air. They didn't even try to meet a certain dollar amount with projections because they came up way short with regard to our eventual needs. But I think what I found comfort in is if you'll show the comparator cities on the single family is we're considering a range that is in the middle of what we're seeing. I did not want to be on the high end. Whether we're deciding that or not, like Councilmember Edson started off by saying, we're not even deciding what the amount is, but I just was saying, I don't want to be on the high end. Am I going to be comfortable with a range later on where we are, we could even be at the high end if it was reasonable, but I don't want to be above everybody else. And when you show the comparator cities, I'm pretty sure that we would be somewhere in the middle if we were to adopt the range that the parks has put forward to us. That range would be 250, this is what they're recommending, doesn't say this is what we're going to approve, but 250 to 350 a door, and which would be 1,000 or as much as, if it was 350 a door, what would that be? 1,400, so it'd be anywhere from 1,000 to 1,400. So here on the screen, you see the comparator cities. Yes, I did ask that more than just the metro be involved, because you can see in the metro, there's a range there from 500 to 1,425, a single-family unit. But there are also cities across the Midwest there and other areas that are pretty aggressive about, they want the best parks. And I would like to support the parks. I would like to put forth a park impact fee. I think we can find a range that our council could agree upon that fits in this on this table, and we won't stand out as the most expensive. But I think I think we could come to an agreement with regard to an amount that would help us build a couple of parks. What was it? A couple parks per 5 years? Every 5 years we need 2 parks? Is that about right? Need a park every year. Okay, so it helps us work towards 1 park per year, 15 acres type of park, which costs about $2 million. I think we could do that. On the commercial side, as you see here, the examples we have are around 13, 12, 15, and 11 cents per square foot. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Snook. And then I think our recommendation is 20 to 30 cents a square foot. I don't think, from what I remember, you got near as much pushback on the commercial as you did the residential. Is that correct?
Correct. It's just to be clear, I don't want to be confusing. Our need is 1 park per year based upon the projected population growth through 2033, which is the end of our sales tax. Depending on the fee structure, you would probably be able to generate enough revenues for 1 park every 3 years to 1 park every 4 years. The need is 1 park every year. This will get us in some range between a park every 3 years to 4 years.
Okay. Could you show the other sheets he provided, Mr. Dunning? Because I think the other one that's important is the future growth. You've done your homework. You're saying this is how much we need by 2040. Here's how much we need by 2033. Here's how much we need Yeah,
Looking for the
I think
projections,
so.
right?
I think that might be it. It's the fact sheet.
Fact sheet.
That's the projections as to how much it'll bring in. I just want to make sure everybody knows that this is a public document. Mr. Snook has provided a fact sheet that goes over much of the presentation that you did before, but this I thought was a great summary of the acres needed by the years, and what it's going to take to get there, and we still have to find funding sources to meet these demands. We're going to have to find more funding sources, just like Councilmember Felker says. I don't want to table it. I want to move this forward and start the discussion about what this fee is going to be. And I would also be in agreement that we can kick this back, push this back, to help people predict and provide the certainty we're talking about. So I would need a motion on that. I don't want this to, as we move forward in the future, when we have a robust conversation about affordable or attainable housing, there's nobody building a $250,000 house in the Midwest. That's not happening. So when we talk about 200s, we got a long way to go. I mean, they're doing 299.9, and there must be incentives in there because when we get to that robust conversation, we're going to bring the experts in the room, the Will Rooters and the others, and we're going to talk about how much it costs to build a 1,200 or smaller home, which is very much entry level, and it's not pretty. So that's going to be a tough realm to compete in. What right now I think we do is we build up our amenities. We make sure that we're the safest community with our public safety. We make sure that we have the best schools and we support our schools, public and private, and we make sure that we have people wanting to move here, building single-family homes, and you do that by providing parks, the best parks we possibly can. So I would like to move forward, get this decision made as a council to move forward, and then let's start talking about what these fees are going to be. And then if we push this back, how far? 6 months, like Councilmember Lovell said, then that gives us over a year to have as many discussions as we want on this and come up with a final decision and implement it. But we don't want to have these discussions next year, Mr. Snook. If you got to give them notice. So we've got to get this conversations going. As much as I'm not looking forward to debating these fees, I'm ready to do it. But we don't want to wait till next year because then we're not providing certainty. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm going to ask if there's any more discussion. Right now, the motion on the floor is to table this, so that's what we would be voting on. Okay, I'm not seeing any more discussion. So we are going to take a vote. If you want to table this, you'd be a yes. If you do not want to table this and you want to vote on the impact fee, then that would be a no. Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. So it does not move forward. It fails, so it's 7-2. That means we're back on the floor with a motion with regard to are we adopting this ordinance to move forward with the park impact fee. And as we've noted numerous times at this point, this is not to establish the amount, but simply to say that, yes, we are going to charge a park impact fee, even though we have ideas of what that range could be at this point. I have the motion on the floor. I have a second. And now, Councilmember Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move to amend the ordinance to have an effective date to impose the impact fees beginning on July 1, 2025.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to move the commencement date, I'm not sure what the terminology was, but commencement date of implementing the fees to July 1, 2025 by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Felker. So that's the 6 months that was referenced earlier by Councilmember Lovell. All right, discussion on that? Okay, we're going to take a vote to amend this and move this back to implementation until July 1. If you'd like to do that, that'd be a yes. If you don't, it'd be a no. Please cast your vote.
Is this voting in favor of a fee, or is this just voting in favor of moving a fee, but we haven't voted in favor of the fee yet?
Correct.
So this is just to move it, okay.
Okay, all votes are in. So the motion on the floor now is amended, like you're saying. It's amended to implement a park impact fee. However, it's amended to not be implemented until July 1st, 2025, instead of January 1st. Did I not clear you, or do you want to speak? Okay, you're done? I didn't clear her. Okay. Any more discussion? All right, seeing none, please cast your vote. Computer's being slow for everybody, if you want to know. Okay, I'm missing one vote. There we go. All votes are in. Please record the vote. So it does pass. A park impact fee is going to be discussed further as far as what the amounts will be, but we are going to move forward with those discussions and implementing some type of fee. So thank you all. I'm sorry. I think it was noted early on in the discussion that we've had 6 presentations on this. That's a tribute to you all. You're not going to let this just zoom by without thorough due diligence, and so I commend you all for hashing it out the way we did. So thank you all, council and staff as well. Mr. Snook, thanks for going the extra mile with the additional information. It did make a difference. With that said, we are on proposed ordinances first reading. Councilmember Lovell, would you please read bill number 24-070?
Mayor, I move to advance the second reading, Bill number 24-070, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $15 million principal amount of special obligation bonds, Downtown Market Plaza Project, Series 2024A of the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, and authorizing certain other documents and actions by the city.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, bill number 24-070 by Councilmember Lovell, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Yes, Councilmember Felker.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Bushek, if you would have just a moment. My first question actually is, and I confess I have not clicked back to confirm my memory, whether it's faulty or correct, but did we talk about $17 million as a special obligation bond amount at an earlier date?
David Bushek, Chief Counsel of Economic Development and Planning. Yes, we've talked about various amounts. There's been probably 3 presentations that you've heard. I'm thinking September, 2 months ago, 1 month ago, roughly. And the amount has evolved as we've perfected the budget. We probably were talking about a larger amount at one point in time, but that was based on, if you go back 2 discussions we had, one of the open questions was, how much cash from the city's reserve account, general fund reserve, the council would like to put forward, and then the financing is based off that. You decided, you settled on an amount, and then this financing is based on that number. So the larger number you're referencing was back when we didn't know what that amount would be.
Got it.
The cash amount.
Thank you for refreshing my memory. And also as a refresher, in terms of how these bonds are actually paid down, I think we talked about this is paid through general revenue funds going forward, like in terms of the buckets of how bonds versus GO bonds are paid in a different way than how the special obligation bonds. In terms of the source of funds used to pay.
Yeah. So for the special obligation bonds here, the source of funds generally, from the perspective of the bond buyer, from the market, is the city. It's the city essentially selling the bonds. And so the city has the obligation to make the payments, but we do have at least one other source of funds to make those payments. That's the Community Improvement District. We've talked about how the Community Improvement District, through an agreement that was executed several years ago, has pledged $162,500 each year to help the city repay that debt. So there's a CID commitment of funding. We may have other sources that can assist in that payment. We're pursuing an application with the Missouri Development Finance Board. We're still pursuing that application. If that's successful, that may be an additional source of revenue for the city to pay down to reduce the amount of debt service that we eventually have to pay. But generally, it's the marketing of the debt is the city is making the payments.
Right, and this is just helpful for me, as we talk about such a substantial outlay and the obligation that is for the city over the long term. You'd presented, and I'm not asking you to put it up on the screen again today, but a kind of a way of thinking about how it's paid back, and we more or less analyzed what might be the, we'll say, the revenue generated by, businesses within the footprint of the downtown.
Right.
And so you came up with some numbers at the time that, would support that repayment, and then I think there's this further assumption that as things develop further downtown, including
Yes.
with this, with the downtown Market Plaza, that there may even be, of course, the assumption is there would be additional revenues to further assist the city in paying down those bonds.
Correct, and I will go ahead and put this slide up
thanks.
here for you to see again. This is the slide that I showed you 2 presentations back. And again, this is a framework to think about how the city might manage this. And to be clear, and I think you're reemphasizing the point, the city is not saying that we will pay for this debt solely from the funds generated from the downtown area, but as a way of thinking about this, roughly $2 million in property taxes, and that number's dated, it's probably quite a bit higher now. And then the sales taxes generated for the city each year in the downtown area is about $3.5 million. Again, a framework so you can understand the revenue generated for the city from the core downtown area.
Mr. Bushek, I just want to say thank you for doing this kind of thing as a council member, and I hope whatever citizens take the time to review and think through these things, it's just helpful to kind of frame and understand, what it is we're doing. And I just appreciate that, because I think it helps the everyday citizen who's not sitting up here having this dialogue to hopefully better understand it. So again, thank you very much to you and others who've supported providing this kind of information, putting it together.
Certainly.
So, Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, motion on the floor with a second for bill number 24-070. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It does move to second reading unanimously. Thank you, everybody. And then committee reports. Councilmember DeMauro.
Thank you, Mayor. Yesterday afternoon in this room, in the council room, we had a Public Works meeting. We had several items that are of significance on our agenda. One of them was the cost share. We executed the cost sharing program with MoDOT for the M291 and US 50 interchange, moving that forward. Also ratified the mill and overlay program that'll be coming to the council. We also did the first look at the FY25 CIP plan, and that actually, the next steps in that after went out of Public Works. Next step will actually be the public comment period. That will happen in April. I don't have a date, but I'm sure it'll be publicized. 15th, April 15th, public comment period on the FY25 CIP plan. And then we had a great discussion on the project delivery methods that we talk about every meeting, it seems like. And that was a very good presentation. I would urge anybody not on the Public Works Committee to pull that up. I think there were some very, very good questions and very good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. At our last Finance and Budget meeting, there were a couple of interesting topics on the agenda. One we voted on tonight was the ERP solutions, the contracts for our new software, which is actually going to be, I think it's about $10 million over 10 years. It's a big thing that we voted on tonight.
Enterprise.
Yeah, the enterprise software. So we had a good discussion about that and about all the new functions it's going to take over, and actually, even though it's a large upfront price tag or a price tag over those 10 years, that kind of saves us a little bit by locking in some prices over a longer term rather than seeing them ratchet up quite so fast. So I just thought I'd mention that for everyone. And then we also had a written report from the city manager about the fund reserve balance, which obviously we've allocated some of that to the downtown Market Plaza, but we're still discussing other possibilities for that. So I just encourage any council members, if there's a priority project you'd like to see funded for a one-time expense, to definitely let Mr. Dunning know. I know he's kind of making a list of possible priorities, so just if you want to have that in the discussion mix, now is the time to put it on the radar. And then our next finance and budget meeting will be May 6th at 4 o'clock in Chambers.
Thank you. On that enterprise, Mr. Dunning, that's gonna, that just is a comprehensive software that every department will be, or a lot of the departments will be using. And you've been talking about it for my entire 6 years I've been here. So it's kind of a big deal.
It is a very big deal. It's our I say it's our financial and human resources backbone and every part of the organization is plugged into that. So it's a big component.
I think we get credit for attraction, satisfaction, and retention with this whole enterprise ERP thing. I'm just saying, it's just, they don't have to enter multiple times into 3 different software programs, the same data. They'll be able to just put it all in one. And that's employee satisfaction.
Pretty comprehensive, yes.
Yeah, all right. Staff roundtable?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I do have a few things. So thank you, Councilmember DeMoro. April 15th is when the capital improvement plan will be out there through the city's website for public comment. So that's everything from streets to facilities, the whole gamut, mapping that out. So it's open Monday, the 15th. April 18th at 1:30, we will hold the groundbreaking for Hangar 2 and the infrastructure for the east side of the airport. So that'll be an exciting day. April 20th, the stream team will be doing a cleanup at Langsford Park. That's over there on Langsford Road, right near the Baxter's Donut. Actually, they're saying meet at Baxter's, and they'll do a stream team cleanup over there at Langsford Park. And then on the 27th of April, we'll be holding a Recycle Fest from 9 to noon out at the maintenance facility. Failed to mention, stream team is from 10 a.m. to noon at that Langsford Park location. And then a general reminder about devices. We need to do a Windows 11 update to your devices. I don't know if it's all of you to leave those here so we can get that done. I'll track that down a little further. And then wrapping up, is somebody shaking heads? Okay. Councilmember Edson mentioned we just finished and opened up Fire Station 4. I wanted to, and Mayor, I know you mentioned this in your remarks, but just publicly, we have completed all those 2019 no tax increase bond initiatives. So very thankful for everybody's efforts in delivering all those. So it's a great amount of work by all parties, Mayor and the council, staff, community. Very happy, proud of those initiatives we brought forward. And that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
And you're bulldozing the heck out of the front yard.
Building new things and then tearing others up, right?
Wow.
Always reinvesting.
That was something to see today. Thank you. Councilmember Shields? I skipped it. Council comments. Councilmember Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank Councilmember Edson and Councilmember Felker for their service. Next meeting will be sine die when we swear in new council members, and I really appreciated serving with both of you. I think tonight our discussion, Councilmember Felker, was a real example of how this body can work well, that we came from really differing viewpoints on an issue and found some common ground, and I really appreciate that. So thank you both for serving.
Thank you. Councilmember Pryor?
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to say thank you to Councilmember Edson and Councilmember Felker. You guys have both taught me a lot, so it's been fun. It's been a fun 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll say my goodbyes next week. Yeah, I don't want Niagara Falls to start here on the council dais. So. I think that's it. So we're going to adjourn. Let me look at the time. At 8:43.